Karina's battered body lay motionless in the toxic wasteland of Proxima B, her blue skin marred by bruises and cuts inflicted by her Tellarite overseers. The alien slave girl had dared to fight back, to dream of freedom, and now she paid the price. Left for dead, her chest barely rising with each labored breath, Karina clung to life with stubborn determination. Gary Webb, human xenobiologist, crouched behind a rocky outcropping, his eyes fixed on the prone figure through his binoculars. He hadn't expected to find a Tellarite this far from the mining facility, let alone one in such dire condition. His mission was clear: observe and document Proxima B's indigenous life forms, maintain his cover, and gather intelligence on the alien coalition threatening humanity's last free colonies. Interfering with a slave escape could jeopardize everything. Yet as Gary watched Karina struggle to move, her fingers clawing at the toxic soil, he felt a surge of admiration for her resilience. Despite her grievous injuries, she refused to succumb to death's embrace. It was a trait Gary recognized all too well, the same stubborn will to survive that had kept humanity fighting against overwhelming odds in the face of alien invasion. Decision made, Gary emerged from his hiding spot and approached Karina. Her eyes, deep pools of violet, widened in fear and then hope as she registered his human features. Gary knelt beside her, assessing her injuries with a practiced eye. The Tellarite's unique physiology was evident even in her weakened state. Enhanced musculature and rapid cellular regeneration already working to heal her wounds. "I'm here to help," Gary said softly, carefully lifting Karina's broken form. She whimpered in pain but didn't resist as he carried her towards his hidden research base. Inside the camouflage structure, Gary laid Karina on a makeshift medical bed and began treating her injuries. As he worked, she drifted in and out of consciousness, murmuring in her native tongue. Gary's universal translator caught fragments of her words, tales of enslavement, of a powerful alien coalition that had subjugated much of the galaxy, and of the Tellarites' unique abilities that made them prized as slaves. Gary's mind raced with the implications. If he could study Karina, understand the source of her enhanced strength and regenerative capabilities, it could provide humanity with a crucial edge in the ongoing interstellar conflict. But as he looked at her face, peaceful now in healing sleep, he felt an unexpected twinge of attraction. Her exotic beauty and indomitable spirit stirred something within him that he'd long thought buried beneath the weight of his mission. A sudden beeping from his communications console shattered the moment. Gary rushed to decrypt the incoming message, his heart pounding as he read the coded transmission from Earth. The news was grim. Humanity's last free colonies were under imminent threat of alien invasion. The stakes of his research had just been raised to unprecedented levels. As Gary turned back to his alien patient, he found Karina's violet eyes open and alert, studying him with a mixture of curiosity and wariness. In that moment, he realized the choice before him was more complex than he'd initially thought. Karina was more than just a subject for study. She was a sentient being with her own desires and motivations. And now, as her former captors undoubtedly launched a search party to reclaim their escaped slave, she was also a liability. Gary took a deep breath, weighing his options. Protect Karina and risk exposure of his mission, or hand her over to maintain his cover. As he met her gaze, he saw a flicker of something that mirrored his own inner conflict, a growing connection that threatened to compromise his objectivity and jeopardize the mission. Little did Gary know that this moment would mark the beginning of an unlikely alliance, one that would not only challenge his loyalties, but also set in motion a chain of events that could alter the fate of both their species in the cosmic struggle for survival. Gary's gaze lingered on Karina's face, his mind racing with conflicting emotions. The weight of his mission pressed down on him, but the connection he felt with this alien woman threatened to upend everything. Before he could voice his internal struggle, a violent tremor shook the research base. "What was that?" Karina asked, her violet eyes widening in alarm. Gary rushed to his monitoring equipment, fingers flying over the controls. "Magnetic storm," he muttered, brow furrowing as he analyzed the readings. "A big one. We need to move." He helped Karina to her feet, her enhanced physiology already showing signs of rapid healing. Together, they gathered essential supplies and equipment, Gary's mind shifting into survival mode. As they stepped outside, the sky above Proxima b roiled with angry swirls of energy, casting an eerie glow over the barren landscape. "The mining facility," Karina said, pointing towards the distant structure. "It's our best chance for gathering intelligence, but in this storm," Gary nodded grimly, "we'll have to delay. There's a cave system nearby. We can wait it out there." They set off across the toxic wasteland, Gary's protective suit whirring as it filtered the poisonous atmosphere. Karina moved with surprising agility despite her recent injuries, her blue skin shimmering under the storm's otherworldly light. As they reached the mouth of the cave, a particularly violent surge of magnetic energy knocked them off their feet. Gary instinctively reached for Karina, pulling her close as they tumbled into the cave's entrance. For a moment, they lay tangled together, hearts racing from more than just the fall. Gary became acutely aware of Karina's alien, yet unmistakably feminine form pressed against him. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice huskier than intended. Karina nodded, her violet eyes locked on his. "Yes, thanks to you." They reluctantly separated and moved deeper into the cave system. As they set up a makeshift camp, the close quarters and isolation only intensified the growing tension between them. Gary found himself stealing glances at Karina, admiring her resilience and exotic beauty. As night fell outside, they huddled near a small heat source, the storm's fury echoing through the cave. In the dim light, Karina began to speak softly about her people, her words painting a vivid picture of Tellarite culture and abilities. "Let me show you," she said, rising to her feet. With seemingly effortless strength, Karina lifted a massive boulder, using it to create a more secure shelter within the cave. Gary watched in awe, his scientific mind racing with the implications of such enhanced abilities. As dawn broke, they ventured out to find the landscape dramatically altered. The mining facility's security perimeter had been breached by the storm, while increased patrol activity suggested their presence might have been detected. "This is our chance," Gary said, eyeing the damaged facility. "We need to move now, while they're still in disarray." They made their way towards the breach, using the post-storm chaos as cover. As they slipped inside the outer defenses, Gary's heart raced with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. They were so close to their goal, yet the danger had never been greater. Suddenly, a group of enslaved Tellarites rounded a corner, their eyes widening in recognition as they spotted Karina. In that split second, Gary saw the conflict play out on her face, the pull of her people versus her commitment to their mission. "I'm sorry," Karina whispered, locking eyes with Gary. Before he could react, she allowed herself to be swept up by the group, disappearing into the depths of the facility. Gary stood frozen, torn between following Karina and pursuing his original objective. With a heavy heart, he forced himself to focus on the mission. He navigated the facility's maze-like interior, documenting everything he could while searching for any sign of Karina. As he rounded a corner, Gary found himself in a restricted area filled with advanced alien technology. His eyes widened as he took in weapons and communication devices far beyond human capabilities. He quickly began capturing images and data, his heart pounding with the magnitude of his discovery. "Impressive, isn't it?" a smooth voice said from behind him. Gary whirled around to find himself face-to-face with a tall, imposing alien. The creature's iridescent skin and multifaceted eyes marked him as a high-ranking official. "I am Zaxler," the alien said, its mouth not moving as the words echoed in Gary's mind. "And we've been expecting you, human." Gary's blood ran cold as he realized the true extent of his predicament. He was alone, deep in enemy territory, with no idea where Karina was or if she was safe. As Zaxler began to speak of deals and exchanges, Gary steeled himself for the difficult choices that lay ahead. Gary's mind raced as he faced Zaxler, the alien's multifaceted eyes gleaming with cold intelligence. The weight of Earth's fate pressed down on him, and in that moment, he made his choice. "I'm afraid I'll have to decline your offer," Gary said, his voice steady despite the fear coursing through him. Zaxler's iridescent skin rippled with surprise. "A bold move, human. Perhaps not a wise one." Gary tensed, ready to act. In one fluid motion, he activated a small device on his wrist, sending out an electromagnetic pulse that temporarily disrupted the facility's systems. Alarms blared as emergency lights flickered to life. "Restrain him," Zaxalor commanded, but Gary was already moving. He darted through the confusion, years of training kicking in as he navigated the labyrinthine corridors. Guards shouted and energy weapons discharged around him, but Gary pressed on, driven by a singular purpose: find Karina and escape. As he ran, Gary spotted a central computer terminal. Acting on instinct, he paused just long enough to plug in a data storage device, rapidly downloading critical information about the alien coalition's capabilities and invasion plans. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed behind him as Gary resumed his flight. He rounded a corner and found himself face to face with a group of alien guards. Thinking quickly, he grabbed a nearby canister and hurled it at them. The container burst, releasing a cloud of thick, acrid smoke that sent the guards into a coughing fit. Using the distraction, Gary slipped past them and continued toward the slave quarters. As he approached, the sounds of commotion grew louder. He peered around a corner and his heart dropped at the sight before him. Karina was on her knees, surrounded by a group of enslaved Tellarites. Looming over her was a brutish alien overseer, Grok. The overseer's massive fist connected with Karina's face, sending her sprawling. "Let this be a lesson to all of you," Grok bellowed. "Rebellion will not be tolerated." Something snapped inside Gary. Without thinking, he charged forward, catching Grok off guard. Gary's fist connected with the alien's jaw, the impact sending shockwaves up his arm. Grok stumbled back, momentarily stunned. He recovered quickly, his eyes blazing with fury. "You dare challenge me, human?" The overseer lunged, but Gary was ready. He sidestepped the attack, using Grok's momentum against him. As the alien stumbled past, Gary delivered a precise strike to a vulnerable point on Grok's neck, a weak spot he'd observed in his studies of alien physiology. Grok went down hard, gasping for air. The assembled Tellarites watched in stunned silence. "Karina!" Gary called out, rushing to her side. She looked up at him, her violet eyes wide with a mix of pain and hope. "Gary, you came back for me." "Of course I did," he said, helping her to her feet. "But we need to move. Now." Karina nodded, her expression hardening with purpose. She turned to the other Tellarites. "This is our chance. Who's with us?" For a moment, no one moved. Then, one by one, the slaves began to break their restraints, their enhanced strength fueled by newfound hope. "Follow us," Gary commanded, leading the group towards the maintenance tunnels. As they ran, the facility erupted into chaos. Alarms blared, and shouts echoed through the corridors. Gary and Karina worked in tandem, her strength and his knowledge of the facility's layout proving a formidable combination. They reached the entrance to the tunnels just as a group of guards rounded the corner behind them. Energy blasts scorched the walls as Gary ushered the escaped slaves into the narrow passageway. "Go!" he shouted, bringing up the rear. The tunnels were dark and cramped, forcing the larger alien pursuit to slow down. Gary navigated the twisting passages, relying on his memorized schematics of the facility. "We're almost there," he panted, glancing back at Karina. She nodded grimly, helping a wounded Tellarite along. They emerged into the harsh Proxima B landscape, the toxic atmosphere immediately assaulting them. Gary quickly distributed breathing apparatus to the group. "This way," he said, pointing towards a distant ridge. "My research base is just beyond that." As they trudged across the barren terrain, Gary's mind raced. The aliens would be able to track them to the base. Years of work, of carefully gathered intelligence, all of it would be compromised. He made his decision as they crested the ridge. Pulling out a small device, Gary entered a series of commands. In the distance, a plume of smoke rose from where his hidden base had been. Karina looked at him, understanding dawning in her eyes. "Your research?" Gary shook his head. "It doesn't matter now. What matters is getting you all to safety and delivering this intelligence to Earth." He led them down the far side of the ridge towards a concealed depression in the landscape. As they approached, the outline of a small spacecraft became visible. "It's not much," Gary explained, "but it's our ticket out of here." A distant rumbling caught their attention. On the horizon, they could see a dust cloud rising. The alien pursuit was closing in. Gary turned to the group, his eyes meeting Karina's. In that moment, the connection between them felt electric, charged with unspoken emotions and the weight of their shared ordeal. "Get everyone on board," he instructed. "We've got one last fight ahead of us." As the escaped slaves filed into the ship, Gary and Karina took up defensive positions. The alien forces were almost upon them, the final confrontation looming. Gary's hand found Karina's, squeezing it briefly before they both raised their weapons, ready to face whatever came next. Gary's hand tightened around his weapon as the alien forces crested the ridge. The toxic mists of Proxima B swirled around them, obscuring their full numbers. But the unmistakable bulk of Grok led the charge. "We're out of time," Gary said, his voice taut with urgency. He turned to the group of Tellarites. "Make a run for the ship. We'll hold them off." Karina nodded, her violet eyes flashing with purpose. As the Tellarites began their dash towards the hidden craft, Gary's mind raced. He scanned the harsh terrain, noting the unstable rock formations and corrosive mineral deposits. "Karina, help me with this," he called, already moving to a nearby outcropping. Together they worked swiftly, using their combined strength to dislodge a massive boulder. It tumbled down the slope, triggering a cascade of rocks and releasing a cloud of caustic dust. The alien squad faltered as the improvised trap wreaked havoc on their ranks. Shouts of confusion and pain echoed across the barren landscape. Gary and Karina didn't waste a moment. They sprinted from cover to cover, setting up more traps using the planet's natural hazards. A well-placed shot from Gary's weapon ignited a pocket of volatile gas, creating a wall of fire that further impeded their pursuers. But the aliens pressed on, driven by Grok's relentless commands. Energy blasts sizzled past them, scorching the rocky ground. Karina grunted as a shot grazed her arm, leaving a nasty burn. "Are you all right?" Gary asked, concern etched on his face. "I'll live," she replied through gritted teeth. "We need to keep moving." They fought their way closer to the ship, where the last of the Tellarites were boarding. Gary's human adaptability shone as he used the terrain to their advantage, while Karina's Tellarite strength proved invaluable in close-quarter skirmishes. As they neared the craft, Grok let out a roar of fury. The massive overseer charged forward, his eyes locked on Gary and Karina. Suddenly, one of the Tellarite escapees stepped forward. It was Zorn, an elder whose weathered face spoke of years of hardship. "Go!" Zorn shouted, his muscles tensing as he prepared to meet Grok's charge. "I'll hold him off." Before Gary could protest, Zorn launched himself at Grok. The two aliens collided in a brutal display of strength, buying precious seconds for Gary and Karina to reach the ship. As they stumbled up the ramp, Gary looked back. Zorn was putting up a valiant fight, but Grok's superior size and rage were overwhelming him. With a heavy heart, Gary sealed the ship's hatch. Inside, Gary's focus immediately shifted to the ship's controls. His eyes darted over the alien interface, years of research kicking in as he deciphered the symbols and commands. "Everyone, secure yourselves," he called out, fingers flying over the control panel. "This might get rough." The ship hummed to life, lifting off just as Grok and the remaining alien forces reached their position. Energy weapons peppered the hull, but Gary's deft piloting kept them from sustaining critical damage. As they broke atmosphere, new alarms blared. The ship's sensors detected the orbital defense system powering up, preparing to fire on the unauthorized vessel. "Karina, I need your help," Gary said, his voice strained as he maneuvered through the initial barrage. "You know their protocols. Where are the weak points in their grid?" Karina leaned forward, studying the tactical display. "There," she pointed, indicating a gap between two defense platforms. "And watch for the patrol patterns here and here." Gary nodded, adjusting their course. They weaved through the storm of energy weapons and guided projectiles, using larger ships as cover when possible. The escapees held on tight as the ship bucked and rolled, narrowly avoiding destruction time and again. A sudden impact rocked the ship, alarms screaming as a critical system failed. Gary's hands flew over the controls, rerouting power, while Karina instinctively moved to assist, stabilizing the craft's trajectory. For a moment, their eyes met. Despite the chaos around them, Gary felt a surge of something deeper than mere adrenaline. The connection between them had grown into something unbreakable, forged in the crucible of their shared ordeal. With a final daring maneuver, they cleared the last of Proxima B's defenses. Gary's finger hovered over the faster-than-light drive activation. "Here goes nothing," he muttered, and pressed the control. The stars blurred around them as the ship leapt into FTL, leaving behind the world that had been their prison. As the immediate danger passed, Gary allowed himself a moment of relief. But that relief was short-lived. A quick analysis of their situation revealed a new challenge. The ship's FTL capabilities were limited. The journey to the nearest human outpost would take several weeks. Gary turned to address the group, his eyes lingering on Karina. "We're not out of the woods yet," he began, noting the mixture of exhaustion and hope on the faces around him. "But we're alive and we're free. Now we have some decisions to make." As Gary spoke, laying out their situation and the challenges ahead, he couldn't help but feel the weight of the data storage device in his pocket. The intelligence he'd gathered could be crucial to Earth's survival. But as he looked at Karina and the liberated Tellarites, he realized that their journey had only just begun, and the true test of his commitment lay in the weeks ahead. Ahead, however, as Gary finished outlining their situation, a sudden jolt rocked the ship, sending everyone scrambling for support. "What was that?" Karina asked, her violet eyes widening with concern. Gary's fingers flew across the control panel, his brow furrowing as he interpreted the alien readouts. "It's the life support systems," he said, his voice tight. "They're malfunctioning." As if on cue, the air grew noticeably thinner, and a chill crept through the cabin. The escaped Tellarites huddled together, their faces etched with worry. Gary's mind raced as he analyzed the data. "The environmental controls," he muttered, realization dawning. "They're calibrated for the alien coalition's physiology, not ours." Karina leaned in, her breath warm against Gary's ear as she studied the readouts. "Can we fix it?" Gary nodded slowly. "We have to. But it won't be easy." Over the next few hours, the situation deteriorated rapidly. Oxygen levels plummeted, and temperature fluctuations became more extreme. Gary and Karina worked tirelessly, poring over the ship's systems. "Look here," Gary said, pointing to a schematic of the ship's biofilters. "These are designed to process alien waste products. They're incompatible with our biology." Karina's eyes widened. "That's why the air feels so thick. It's building up toxic substances." Gary nodded grimly. "We need to modify these biofilters and fast." As they formulated a plan, a Tellarite named Corva approached, her eyes bright with interest. "I may be able to assist," she said. "I worked in the facility's engineering section." Gary smiled, grateful for the help. "Perfect. We'll need all hands on deck for this." The trio set to work, cannibalizing parts from non-essential systems to modify the biofilters. The ship's cramped engine room became their workshop, forcing them to work in close quarters. As Gary reached past Karina to adjust a coupling, their bodies pressed together briefly. A spark of electricity seemed to pass between them, and for a moment their eyes met. The air grew thick with unspoken tension, but they forced themselves to refocus on the task at hand. Hours passed as they worked feverishly. Gary's human ingenuity was put to the test as he grappled with unfamiliar alien technology. Karina's knowledge of the systems proved invaluable, her insights helping them navigate the complex controls. As they worked, Gary couldn't help but notice how Karina seemed less affected by the deteriorating conditions. Her enhanced Tellarite physiology appeared to provide greater resistance to the toxic buildup. Suddenly, a commotion erupted from the main cabin. Karina rushed to investigate, returning moments later with a grim expression. "One of the refugees has collapsed," she reported. "The others are panicking." Gary's heart sank. They were running out of time. Karina took charge of the situation, her natural leadership shining through. She organized the refugees into shifts, minimizing their exposure to the most affected areas of the ship. As Gary made the final adjustments to the biofilters, a power surge threatened to undo their work. Without hesitation, Karina used her enhanced strength to manually hold a malfunctioning valve in place. "Hurry," she grunted, her muscles straining against the pressure. Gary worked with frantic precision, keenly aware of the physical toll on Karina. Finally, with a series of beeps and whirs, the life support system stabilized. A collective sigh of relief echoed through the ship as fresh air began to circulate. The immediate crisis had passed, but Gary knew they weren't out of danger yet. "The power reserves are critically low," he announced, studying the ship's readouts. "We need to find a place to land and make repairs." After a tense few minutes of calculations, Gary plotted a new course to a nearby uninhabited planet. It would delay their journey, but they had no choice. As the adrenaline of the crisis subsided, Gary and Karina found themselves alone on the ship's observation deck. The vast expanse of space stretched out before them, a stark reminder of the challenges they still faced. "I couldn't have done this without you," Gary said softly, turning to face Karina. She met his gaze, her violet eyes reflecting the starlight. "We make a good team," she replied, a hint of a smile on her lips. The air between them crackled with unspoken emotions. Gary opened his mouth to speak, his heart racing, when suddenly the ship's proximity alert blared to life. "We're approaching the planet," Karina said, her professional demeanor snapping back into place. As they hurried to the cockpit, Gary's mind whirled with conflicting thoughts. The fate of their mission, the refugees, and his growing feelings for Karina all hung in the balance as they prepared for planetfall. The unknown world loomed before them, a swirling mass of blues and greens. As Gary initiated the landing sequence, he couldn't shake the feeling that their greatest challenges, and perhaps their greatest opportunities, still lay ahead. Ahead, as they breached the planet's upper atmosphere, the ship suddenly lurched, throwing Gary and Karina against the control panel. Alarms blared as the vessel shuddered violently. "We've got atmospheric turbulence," Gary shouted, his hands flying over the controls. "The ship's systems are failing." Karina gripped the edge of the console, her violet eyes scanning the readouts. "The stabilizers are offline," she reported, her voice tight with tension. Gary's mind focused as he fought to keep the ship level. "Can you manually operate them?" Without hesitation, Karina sprinted to the rear of the ship. Using her enhanced Tellarite strength, she wrenched open an access panel and began manipulating the stabilizer controls by hand. Despite their efforts, the ship plummeted through the dense atmosphere, trailing smoke and debris. Gary's knuckles turned white as he gripped the controls, guiding their descent as best he could. "Brace for impact," he yelled, seconds before they struck the top of a massive alien forest. The ship caromed off treetops, shedding hull plating and leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. With a final bone-jarring impact, it slammed into the forest floor, coming to rest in a clearing of its own making. For a moment, silence reigned. Then the air filled with the groans and cries of the passengers. Gary shook his head, clearing the fog of impact. "Is everyone all right?" he called out, forcing himself to his feet. Karina emerged from the rear of the ship, a thin line of blood trickling from a cut on her forehead. "We're alive," she reported, "but some of the Tellarites are injured." Gary nodded, his mind already racing. "We need to secure the area and salvage what we can. Karina, can you organize the able-bodied into teams?" As Karina set to work, Gary surveyed the damage. The ship's hull was breached in multiple places, and equipment lay scattered across the crash site. He took a deep breath, noting a strange, sweet scent in the air. "The atmosphere," he muttered, pulling out a portable analyzer. "It's breathable, but there's something else." As he studied the readouts, he noticed the Tellarites moving with increased vigor, despite their recent ordeal. Karina approached, her movements more fluid and powerful than usual. "Gary," she said, her eyes bright, "something's happening. I feel stronger." He nodded, piecing together the data. The atmosphere. It contains trace elements that seem to be enhancing Tellarite physiology. But for humans, he frowned, feeling a slight headache forming. It might be mildly toxic long-term. As night fell, they worked to establish a temporary camp. The enhanced Tellarites proved invaluable, their increased strength allowing them to quickly construct shelters and defenses. Corva, the Tellarite engineer, approached Gary as he examined the ship's damaged systems. "I've assessed the engines," she reported. "Repairs are possible, but it will take time. Days, perhaps weeks." Gary nodded, his mind already calculating their options. "We'll need to make the most of our time here. This planet, it's unlike anything we've encountered." As if to emphasize his point, The forest around them began to glow. Bioluminescent creatures emerged from the undergrowth, casting an ethereal light across the crash site. Beautiful, Karina breathed, joining Gary at the edge of the camp. But if there are small creatures like this, there might be larger predators, Gary finished, meeting her gaze. We'll need to set up a watch rotation. As the night wore on, Gary and Karina found themselves sharing a watch shift. The alien forest pulsed with soft light around them, creating an intimate atmosphere. Gary, Karina said softly, turning to face him, I wanted to thank you for everything you've done for my people. He met her gaze, suddenly aware of how close they were standing. Karina, Before he could finish, she leaned in, pressing her lips to his. For a moment, the universe seemed to shrink to just the two of them, surrounded by the glow of an alien world. A thunderous roar shattered the moment, echoing through the forest. They sprang apart, alert and ready for action. What was that? Karina whispered, her eyes scanning the tree line. Gary shook his head, his heart racing from more than just the sudden noise. I don't know, but I have a feeling our stay on this planet is going to be more eventful than we bargained for. As dawn broke, casting new light on their alien surroundings, Gary couldn't shake the feeling that this unexpected detour might hold the key to something far greater than their immediate mission. The mysteries of this world and the evolving dynamics within their group promised challenges and discoveries that would test them all in ways they couldn't yet imagine. As dawn broke, casting new light on their alien surroundings, Gary couldn't shake the feeling that this unexpected detour might hold the key to something far greater than their immediate mission. The mysteries of this world and the evolving dynamics within their group promised challenges and discoveries that would test them all in ways they couldn't yet imagine. Over the next few days, the crash survivors settled into a routine of repair work and exploration. Gary and Karina divided their time between overseeing the ship's restoration and investigating their new environment. The Tellarites, invigorated by the planet's unique atmosphere, proved to be tireless workers. However, their progress was soon threatened by an unexpected development. Gary, who had been monitoring the planet's weather patterns, noticed a massive storm system approaching their location. Karina, he called, gesturing her over to the makeshift command center they'd set up. Take a look at this. She leaned in, her violet eyes widening as she took in the swirling mass of clouds on the display. That doesn't look good, Gary nodded grimly. It's unlike anything I've seen before. The energy readings are off the charts. If it hits us directly, it could destroy everything we've accomplished so far. Karina's brow furrowed in concentration. What are our options? Gary's mind raced, analyzing their resources in the surrounding terrain. We need to build a protective barrier, he said, his voice gaining confidence as the plan took shape. We can use salvaged parts from the ship and combine them with local materials. If we work fast, we might be able to create a structure strong enough to withstand the storm. Karina nodded, her leadership instincts kicking in. I'll organize the Tellarites. With our enhanced strength, we can move the heavier debris and fell some of these alien trees to reinforce the wall. As the storm loomed ever closer, the crash site became a hive of activity. Gary directed the construction efforts, his scientific knowledge allowing him to maximize the effectiveness of their limited resources. Karina led teams of Tellarites in hauling massive pieces of wreckage and uprooting towering alien flora to create a formidable barricade around their camp. The air grew thick with tension as the sky darkened and the wind began to howl. Gary and Karina found themselves working side by side, their bodies pressed close as they struggled to secure a section of the wall that threatened to collapse under the increasing gale. Push! Gary shouted over the roar of the wind, his muscles straining as he braced himself against the barrier. Karina grunted with effort, her enhanced strength allowing her to hold the structure in place as Gary quickly welded it to the support beams. For a moment, their eyes met, and Gary felt a jolt of electricity that had nothing to do with the storm. As the tempest reached its peak, the camp's defenses were pushed to their limits. Rain lashed down in sheets, and bolts of alien lightning illuminated the sky in eerie hues. Gary and Karina worked tirelessly, moving from one weak point to another, their teamwork seamless and instinctive. During a brief lull in the storm, Gary found himself standing close to Karina, both of them drenched and breathing heavily from their exertions. Without thinking, he reached out to brush a strand of wet hair from her face. Their eyes locked, and for a moment, the chaos around them seemed to fade away. The moment was broken by a thunderous crack as a nearby tree succumbed to the wind. They sprang apart, refocusing on the task at hand, but the lingering tension between them remained palpable. After what seemed like an eternity, the storm began to subside. As the first rays of sunlight broke through the dissipating clouds, the survivors emerged from their shelters to survey the damage. Miraculously, their defenses had held, and the ship remained largely intact. However, the storm had left its mark on the landscape. As Gary conducted a perimeter check, he noticed something strange in the distance. "Karina," he called out, excitement creeping into his voice. "You need to see this." She jogged over, her eyes following his outstretched arm. In the distance, where once there had been only dense forest, a structure was now visible. The storm had unearthed what appeared to be ancient ruins, their metallic surfaces glinting in the morning light. "Another remnant of this world's past," Karina mused, her curiosity evident. Gary nodded, his mind already racing with possibilities. "We should investigate. There might be technology there that could help us repair the ship more quickly." After ensuring the camp was secure, Gary assembled a small expedition team. As they approached the ruins, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the verge of a significant discovery. The entrance to the structure was partially obscured by fallen debris, but with the Tellurite's enhanced strength, they quickly cleared a path. As they ventured deeper into the complex, Gary's portable scanner began to pick up energy readings. "This way, Boer," he said, leading the group down a corridor lined with strange, pulsating symbols. They emerged into a vast chamber, dominated by a central pillar that thrummed with barely held back power. Gary's eyes widened as he took in the advanced technology surrounding them. "This is incredible," he breathed, approaching the pillar. "If I'm reading this correctly, this is some kind of power source, and it's still functional after all this time." As Gary worked to decipher the alien controls, Karina kept watch, her enhanced senses alert for any danger. The air was thick with anticipation as Gary's fingers danced over the ancient console. Suddenly, the chamber came to life. Lights flickered on, and the hum of awakening machinery filled the air. For a moment, Gary allowed himself a triumphant smile. Then everything went wrong. Alarms blared, and the ground beneath their feet began to shake. The ruins around them started to shift and reconfigure, revealing hidden passages and chambers. "Gary!" Karina shouted, her voice tight with urgency. "We need to get out of here." But as they turned to flee, they found their exit blocked. The ruins had come alive, sealing them inside the vast underground complex. And from the depths of the ancient structure, they heard the unmistakable sound of mechanical guardians awakening, ready to defend their long-abandoned home. Trapped and facing an unknown threat, Gary and Karina exchanged a look of determination. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. Together. As they faced the awakening mechanical guardians, Gary's mind raced, searching for a solution. Suddenly, he spotted a familiar pattern on one of the walls. "Karina, cover me," he shouted, darting towards the symbols. She nodded, positioning herself between Gary and the approaching threat. Her enhanced strength allowed her to hold off the first wave of mechanical sentinels, buying precious seconds. Gary's fingers flew over the alien controls, his earlier deciphering efforts paying off. With a triumphant cry, he activated a hidden mechanism. The floor beneath them shifted, revealing an emergency escape route. "This way," he called, grabbing Karina's arm. They plunged into the tunnel, the sounds of pursuit fading behind them. After what seemed like an eternity of twists and turns, they emerged into the alien forest, gasping for breath. "We need to warn the others," Karina panted, already moving towards the camp. As they approached, they were met with a scene of chaos. The Tellurite refugees were engaged in a heated argument, their voices carrying through the alien foliage. Gary's heart sank as he recognized the two distinct groups forming. On one side stood Vex, his voice booming as he gesticulated wildly. "This planet is a gift. We must seize this opportunity to build a new home." Opposing him was Corva, her face set in dedication. "Our mission to Earth is paramount. We cannot abandon our allies in their time of need. The tension in the air was palpable, and as Gary and Karina watched, the argument escalated into a physical altercation. Tellarites from both sides began pushing and shoving, their enhanced strength threatening to cause serious damage to both themselves and the partially repaired ship. "We have to stop this," Gary muttered, his eyes scanning the area for anything he could use. His gaze fell on a pile of salvaged ship parts. An idea struck him, and he quickly began assembling a makeshift sound amplification device. Meanwhile, Karina sprang into action. With her enhanced strength, she waded into the fray, physically separating the fighting factions. She grabbed two of the largest Tellarites, one from each side, and held them apart effortlessly. "Enough!" she roared, her voice cutting through the commotion. The fighting paused, all eyes turning to Karina. In that moment of silence, Gary activated his improvised device. "Listen to me," his voice boomed across the camp, startling even the most agitated Tellarites into stillness. "We've made a discovery that changes everything." As the crowd's attention focused on Gary, he and Karina shared their findings about the ancient ruins and the planet's history. They spoke of the advanced empire that once spanned multiple star systems, including Proxima b. The Tellarites listened in rapt attention, their earlier conflict momentarily forgotten in the face of this new information. Karina seized the moment of unity. "We don't have to choose between staying and continuing our mission," she said, her voice firm but encouraging. "We can do both." She outlined her compromise, establishing a small, permanent settlement on the planet for those who wish to stay, while allowing the rest to continue the journey to Earth. Gary supported her plan, adding that the settlement could serve as a research outpost to study the planet's unique properties and the ancient empire's legacy. "Think of the advantages this could give us against the alien coalition," Gary emphasized. "The knowledge and technology we could gain here might be the key to turning the tide of the war." The proposal was met with murmurs of approval from both factions. Vex stepped forward, nodding slowly. "I will lead those who wish to stay," he declared. "We will build a new home here and unlock the secrets of this world." Corva moved to stand beside him, her earlier anger tinged with dedication. "And I will continue to lead our mission to Earth. We will carry the knowledge we've gained here to our allies." As the two leaders shook hands, a palpable sense of relief washed over the camp. The Tellarites began to disperse, already discussing plans for the settlement and the ship repairs with renewed vigor. In the midst of the activity, Gary and Karina found themselves alone for a moment. The stress of recent events and the relief of finding a solution overwhelmed them. Without a word, they fell into each other's arms, their lips meeting in a passionate kiss. Their intimate moment was short-lived, however. A sudden tremor shook the ground, followed by a blinding flash of light from the direction of the ruins. Gary and Karina broke apart, their eyes wide with alarm. "The power source," Gary breathed, his mind racing. "It must have triggered some kind of chain reaction." As they watched, more flashes of light appeared across the horizon, each accompanied by a surge of energy that they could feel even at this distance. "We need to investigate Rhea," Karina said, already moving towards the nearest energy signature. Gary nodded, calling out to the Tellarites to form research teams. As they set out to explore the newly awakened ruins, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the brink of something monumental. The planet was coming alive around them, and with it, the promise of untold discoveries and unknown dangers. Dangers. The air crackled with energy as more flashes illuminated the sky, each pulse sending vibrations through the ground beneath their feet. Gary's eyes widened as he spotted something in the distance. "Karina, look!" he exclaimed, pointing towards the horizon. Following his gaze, Karina gasped. A series of unidentified objects had entered the planet's atmosphere, their sleek forms cutting through the clouds with alarming speed. "We need to mobilize," Karina said, her voice tight with urgency. "This could be a threat." Gary nodded, his mind already racing. "I'll work on enhancing our sensors. We need to know what we're dealing with." As Karina rallied the Tellarites, organizing them into defensive positions, Gary rushed to the ship. He integrated components from the ancient technology they discovered, pushing the sensors beyond their original capabilities. The enhanced readouts flickered to life, revealing a startling discovery. "Karina!" Gary called out, his voice carrying across the busy camp. "These aren't any ships we've encountered before. It's a new alien race." As the unknown vessels drew closer, Gary watched in fascination as they deployed smaller pods, which descended towards the surface near their camp. The Tellarites, guided by Karina's expert leadership, had already constructed impressive fortifications, using their enhanced strength and the materials at hand. Gary emerged from the ship, his face a mix of excitement and apprehension. "The ship's nearly ready for emergency takeoff if we need it," he reported to Karina, "but I'm hoping it won't come to that." They watched as the alien pods touched down, their sleek surfaces gleaming in the planet's strange light. As the hatches opened, Gary and Karina held their breath, unsure of what to expect. The beings that emerged were unlike anything they had ever seen. Tall and slender, their bodies seemed to glow with an inner light, pulsing in mesmerizing patterns. Their movements were fluid and graceful as they surveyed their surroundings. One of the aliens, distinguishable by intricate markings on its luminescent skin, approached the camp. It raised its arms in what appeared to be a gesture of peace. "I am Zerath," the alien spoke, its voice resonating with an otherworldly timbre. "We are the Zen, explorers and seekers of knowledge. We come in peace." Gary stepped forward, his scientific curiosity overriding his caution. "I'm Gary, and this is Karina," he said, gesturing to his companion. "What brings you to this planet?" Zerath's bioluminescent patterns shifted, creating a mesmerizing display. "We detected a massive energy surge from this world. It bears the signature of the ancient empire we have long sought to understand." As Zerath explained the Zin's mission to uncover the secrets of the galaxy-spanning ancient civilization, Gary's excitement grew. He saw an opportunity not just for knowledge, but for powerful allies in their struggle against the alien coalition. Karina, however, remained wary. Her experiences with alien races had taught her caution. "And what do you want from us?" she asked, her tone guarded. "An alliance," Zerath replied. "We offer our vast knowledge of the ancient empire in exchange for access to these newly awakened ruins." Before they could discuss further, the ground beneath them shook violently. The planet's awakening systems were causing widespread environmental instability. "We need to stabilize the planet's core systems," Zerath said urgently, "or everything here will be destroyed." Gary nodded, his mind racing with possibilities. "We'll need to work together. Our combined knowledge might be the key to saving this place." As they formulated a plan, Zerath revealed a crucial piece of information. "We possess technology that can interface directly with the ancient systems, but it requires a symbiotic link with a compatible life form." The Zen ran quick scans of the group, their advanced biotechnology humming softly. To everyone's surprise, the results showed that Gary's human physiology was uniquely suited for the symbiotic link. Gary's eyes lit up with drive. "I'll do it," he said without hesitation. Karina grabbed his arm, her eyes wide with concern. "Gary, no! We don't know what this could do to you. It's too dangerous." Their eyes met, the air between them charged with unspoken emotions. "I have to, Karina," Gary said softly. "It's our best chance to save the planet and secure this technology. Think of what it could mean for Earth, for your people." Karina's grip tightened, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I can't lose you, Gary. I care about you too much." The admission hung between them, momentarily drowning out the chaos around them. Gary placed his hand over hers, his touch gentle. "I care about you too, Karina. That's why I have to do this. For all of us." With a heavy heart, Karina stepped back, allowing Gary to approach Zerath. The Zen leader guided Gary to one of their pods where the symbiotic interface waited. As Gary prepared for the procedure, the planet shook again, more violently this time. Cracks appeared in the ground, spreading rapidly towards the camp in the ancient ruins. "We must hurry," Zerath urged, activating the symbiotic device. Gary felt a strange sensation as the alien technology merged with his nervous system. His mind expanded, suddenly aware of vast networks of energy crisscrossing the planet. With a thought, he accessed the ancient systems, his consciousness spreading through the planet's core. As Gary worked to stabilize the environmental fluctuations, Karina watched anxiously. She could see the toll it was taking on him, his body trembling with the effort of controlling such immense power. Finally, after what seemed like hours, the earthquake subsided. The planet's system settled into a stable rhythm. Gary disconnected from the interface, stumbling as Karina rushed to catch him. "I did it," he mumbled weakly, his skin burning with fever. "The planet, it's safe now." As Karina tended to Gary's weakened state, Zerath approached with news that would change the course of their mission. The Zin leader shared information about the galactic political landscape, revealing that the alien coalition they had been fighting was just one of many powers in the cosmos. "There are other civilizations," Zerath explained, "more benevolent ones, who might be willing to ally with your people." This revelation sparked intense discussions among the group. The possibility of finding new allies was tempting, but it would mean a significant detour from their original mission to Earth. As they debated their next move, Gary's condition worsened. The symbiotic link had unexpected side effects, causing him to experience vivid visions of the ancient empire's history. These glimpses into the past provided valuable insights, but they also put an immense strain on his mind and body. Karina never left Gary's side, her face etched with worry as she cared for him. In a quiet moment as Gary's fever raged, she made her decision. "I'm staying with you," she told him, her voice firm despite the emotion behind it. "Wherever this journey takes us, I'll be there. We'll see this through together." As the group prepared for their departure, those who chose to remain on the planet led by Vex began establishing their settlement near the ruins. The Zin offered to escort Gary, Karina, and the others to a neutral space station where they could make contact with potential allies. Gary, still weak but determined, worked alongside Karina and the Zin to prepare their ship for the journey ahead. As they made final adjustments, integrating Zin technology with their own, Gary and Karina found themselves alone for a moment. Without a word, they reached for each other, their hands intertwining. They gazed out at the alien landscape, the newly awakened ruins glowing with ancient power. The future was uncertain, filled with unknown challenges and potential allies. But in that moment, as their ship prepared to lift off into the star-filled sky, Gary and Karina knew that whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. Together, no matter what challenges lay ahead. As the ship lifted off, its newly integrated Zin technology humming in perfect harmony with the Tellarite systems, Gary felt a wave of dizziness wash over him. He stumbled, and Karina was there in an instant, her strong arm supporting him. "Easy," she murmured, guiding him to a nearby seat. "The symbiotic link is still affecting you." Gary nodded, his vision swimming. "I'll be all right," he assured her, though his voice lacked conviction. The journey through unfamiliar star systems stretched into weeks. The Zin escort vessel flanked their ship, its sleek form a constant presence outside the viewports. Inside, the close quarters of the ship forced Gary and Karina into near-constant proximity. As Gary's condition stabilized, he began experiencing vivid visions of the ancient empire's history. Each one left him gasping, his pupils dilating from the influx of information. "Quick," he'd call out, and Karina would rush to his side with a data pad, ready to document every detail. "There was a great battle," Gary recounted after one particularly intense vision, his eyes unfocused. "Thousands of ships, technology beyond anything we've seen, and at the center of it all, a weapon that could—" He broke off, shuddering. Karina placed a comforting hand on his shoulder, her touch grounding him in the present. As the days passed, their relationship deepened. They worked together, interpreting Gary's visions, discussing theories late into the night. In quiet moments, they found themselves drawing closer, the physical attraction between them growing stronger. One evening, as they pored over star charts, their hands brushed. They froze, eyes meeting. Gary leaned in, his heart racing, but at the last moment, Karina pulled back. "We can't," she whispered, though her eyes betrayed her desire. "Not with so much uncertainty ahead." Gary nodded, understanding, but frustrated. They returned to their work, the tension between them palpable. As they approached the coordinates of the neutral space station, their ship's enhanced sensors picked up an unusual energy signature emanating from a nearby asteroid field. "We should investigate," Gary insisted, studying the readouts. Zerath's voice crackled over the comms. It could be dangerous. We should proceed to the station. Karina met Gary's eyes, seeing the commitment there. I trust Gary's instincts, she declared. We're going in. They navigated into the asteroid field, dodging massive chunks of rock and ice. As they rounded a particularly large asteroid, they saw it. A hidden outpost, its structures seamlessly integrated into the rocky surface. Tellarite design, Karina breathed, her eyes wide. They docked at the outpost, tension high as they prepared to meet its inhabitants. As the airlock cycled open, they were greeted by a group of wary Tellarites, led by an elderly female. I am Zara, the leader announced, her eyes scanning the group before settling on Karina. She gasped, her composure cracking. Karina, is it really you? Karina stepped forward, confusion etched on her face. How do you know my name? Zara's eyes filled with tears. My dear child, I'm your grandmother. The revelation hit Karina like a physical blow. She staggered, and Gary was there to steady her. As Zara embraced her long-lost granddaughter, Gary noticed the tired faces of the other Tellarites. Something was wrong. Your life support systems, he said, realization dawning. They're failing, aren't they? Zara nodded gravely. We've been cut off for years, our resources dwindling. We lack the means to evacuate. Gary's mind raced, drawing on his recent experiences with ancient technology. I might have a solution, he said, already moving towards the outpost control center. If we integrate some of our ship's new systems with your infrastructure, we could not only save your people but potentially create a powerful hidden base. As Gary worked feverishly on the integration, another vision slammed into him. He cried out, collapsing to his knees. Karina was at his side in an instant, cradling his head as he shook with the force of the vision. Gary, what did you see? She asked urgently. His eyes snapped open, filled with a mix of awe and fear. A super weapon, he gasped, capable of neutralizing entire fleets, and I know where to find it. The implications of this discovery hung heavy in the air. If they could reach this weapon before the alien coalition, it could change everything. Days passed as they worked to save the outpost and extract the critical information from Gary's vision. Tensions rose as Zerath and the Zin grew impatient. We must leave, Zerath insisted. Our mission, Karina interrupted fiercely, is to save lives and fight the coalition. These are my people, and we won't abandon them. Their unwavering commitment impressed Zara. She approached them, her expression solemn. There's something I must show you, she said, leading them to a hidden chamber deep within the outpost. Inside, they found a piece of technology unlike anything they'd seen before. A Tellarite stealth device, Zara explained. It can render a ship nearly undetectable. As they marveled at this new asset, alarms blared throughout the outpost. They rushed to the control room, where a Tellarite operator looked up with panic in his eyes. Coalition ship, he reported. A whole fleet heading straight for us. Gary and Karina shared a look of perseverance. They had a fight on their hands, and the fate of the Tellarite refugees, the ancient superweapon, and potentially the entire galaxy hung in the balance. Balance. The tension in the control room was palpable as they faced the approaching coalition fleet. Suddenly, the outpost sensors blared with a new alert. Gary's eyes widened as he processed the information. Multiple energy signatures detected ahead. It's not just the coalition. Karina leaned over the console, her brow furrowed. What do you mean? Before Gary could respond, the view screen flickered to life, revealing a vast expanse of space littered with debris and unfamiliar ships. The neutral space station they had been approaching loomed in the distance, but something was terribly wrong. The station's defenses are active, Zerath announced, his tentacles twitching nervously. They're targeting us. Gary's enhanced reflexes kicked in as he took control of the ship's helm. The vessel lurched to the side, narrowly avoiding a searing beam of energy that streaked past them. Alarms blared throughout the ship as more weapons fire erupted from the station. What's happening? Zara demanded, gripping the edge of a nearby console. I thought this was supposed to be a neutral haven. Karina's fingers flew across the communication panel. Zin vessel, can you make contact with the station? The reply came swiftly. Negative, we're receiving no response to our hails. As Gary skillfully maneuvered their ship through the barrage, Zerath's sensors picked up additional information. The station's been overtaken. I'm detecting multiple non-standard energy signatures. It appears to be the Black Star Corsairs. A collective gasp rippled through the control room. The Black Star Corsairs were infamous throughout the galaxy, a ruthless band of mercenaries and pirates known for their advanced technology and brutal tactics. Gary's mind raced, pulling together fragments of information from his visions and their current predicament. "We need to use the stealth device," he announced. "It's our only chance to get close enough to the station without being blown apart." Karina nodded, her expression grim. "Zara, can you and your team get the Tellarite stealth device online and integrated with our systems?" The elderly Tellarite straightened, a determined glint in her eye. "We'll make it work. Give us 10 minutes." As Zara and her team rushed to implement the stealth technology, Gary and Karina worked in tandem to keep the ship intact. The Zin escort vessel provided cover fire, drawing some of the station's attention away from them. "Gary," Karina called out, her voice strained, "can you use your connection to the ancient systems to give us an edge?" Gary nodded, closing his eyes and reaching out with his mind. The familiar rush of information flooded his consciousness as he interfaced with the ship's enhanced systems. Through this connection, he sensed a faint echo, a hidden pathway that seemed to lead straight into the heart of the space station. His eyes snapped open. "There's a concealed docking bay, part of the station's original structure. If we can reach it, we might be able to slip inside undetected." Just then, Zara's voice crackled over the intercom. "Stealth systems online and integrated. It's not perfect, but it should mask our approach." With a shared look of persistence, Gary and Karina initiated the cloaking sequence. The ship shimmered, its outline blurring as the advanced stealth field enveloped them. "We've got one shot at this," Karina announced to the crew. "Everyone, prepare for potential hostile engagement once we're aboard." As they approached the station, weaving through debris and narrowly avoiding patrolling Corsair ships, Gary felt the strain of maintaining their cloak while interfacing with the ancient systems. Sweat beaded on his forehead, his muscles trembling with exertion. Karina noticed his struggle and placed a supportive hand on his shoulder. "Stay with me, Gary. We're almost there." Their ship glided silently towards the hidden docking bay, the station's massive bulk looming before them. Just as they were about to reach safety, a patrol of Corsair ships veered dangerously close to their position. Gary gritted his teeth, pushing the limits of their stealth technology. The effort sent a spike of pain through his skull, but he held on, guiding the ship with preternatural precision. Seconds stretched into eternity as they slipped past the patrol. Finally, with a gentle thud, their ship settled into the concealed docking bay. As the last docking clamp engaged, Gary's eyes rolled back, and he collapsed in his seat. "Gary!" Karina cried out, catching him before he could fall to the floor. She cradled his head, feeling the feverish heat radiating from his skin. "We need medical assistance here, now." As the Tellarite medical team rushed to Gary's aid, Karina took charge of the situation. She turned to Zerath and the others, her voice steady despite the worry etched on her face. "We've made it this far, but our fight is just beginning. Prepare a scouting team. We need to gather intel on the Corsair's strength and find a way to retake this station. And most importantly," she added, her gaze falling on Gary's unconscious form, "we need to find a way to stabilize his condition before it's too late." The crew sprang into action, the gravity of their situation sinking in. They had breached the Corsair's stronghold, but the true test of their dedication and ingenuity was yet to come. The crew sprang into action, the gravity of their situation sinking in. They had breached the Corsair's stronghold, but the true test of their dedication and ingenuity was yet to come. As Karina led her team through the dimly lit corridors of the station, the sound of approaching footsteps echoed from around the corner. She signaled for her team to take cover, pressing herself against the cold metal wall. A group of Black Star Corsairs rounded the bend, their weapons at the ready. Karina's heart raced as she calculated their odds. Just as she was about to give the order to open fire, Gary's voice crackled through her earpiece. "Karina, I've accessed the station's systems. Sealing off corridors now." With a hiss of hydraulics, blast doors slammed shut behind the Corsair group, cutting them off from reinforcements. Karina seized the moment, leading her team in a swift assault. The close quarters erupted in a firefight, energy bolts sizzling through the air. As the battle intensified, Karina found herself face-to-face with a Corsair lieutenant. The alien towered over her, its mandibles clicking in anticipation. Karina's Tellarite strength surged through her muscles as she ducked under the lieutenant's wild swing. She countered with a series of quick jabs, her enhanced agility allowing her to dance around her larger opponent. The lieutenant stumbled, caught off guard by her speed. Seizing the opening, Karina landed a powerful uppercut, sending the Corsair crashing to the ground. "Path clear," she shouted, gesturing for her team to advance. As they pushed forward, Gary's voice came through again, strained but urgent. "Karina, I've found something. The Corsairs have been collecting data on various species, including humans and Tellarites. It could be crucial intelligence." "Copy that," Karina replied, her mind racing with the implications. "We'll grab what we can on our way out." They fought their way through the station, Gary's control over the systems providing them with critical advantages. Blast doors opened and closed at just the right moments, trapping Corsair reinforcements and clearing their path. Finally, they reached their ship. Karina could see the relief on her team's faces as they boarded, but she knew they weren't out of danger yet. "Gary, we're aboard. Initiate launch sequence." The ship hummed to life, its engines powering up. Suddenly, the hidden docking bay began to open, exposing them to the rest of the station. "Corsair fleet alerted," Gary announced, his voice tight with concentration. "Hang on, this is going to be close." The ship shot out of the bay, immediately greeted by a barrage of weapons fire. Gary's hands flew over the controls, his connection to the ancient technology guiding his movements with preternatural precision. They weaved through the onslaught, narrowly avoiding collisions with debris and enemy ships. The Tellarite stealth technology flickered under the strain, leaving them exposed. "Stealth systems failing," Zarath reported, his tentacles working furiously over the console. Gary's eyes narrowed in concentration, redirecting power from non-essential systems to reinforce defenses. The ship shuddered as another blast grazed their shields, but Gary's quick thinking held them together. They pushed their engines to the limit, straining to break free from the station's immediate vicinity. Just as it seemed the Corsair fleet would overwhelm them, a massive shape decloaked nearby. A voice boomed over their comms. "This is Admiral Thorne of the Resistance. We've got you covered. Make for these coordinates." The warship opened fire on the Corsair fleet, creating a path for Gary and Karina's ship to escape. With a final burst of speed, they broke free, leaving the chaos of the station behind. As they set course for the Resistance coordinates, Karina rushed to Gary's side. He slumped in his chair, sweat beading on his forehead. "Gary," she called, her voice tinged with worry. "Stay with me." His eyes fluttered open, unfocused. "The strain, it's too much." Karina turned to Zara and the Zin crew members. "We need to stabilize him, now." As they worked to treat Gary, Admiral Thorne's face appeared on their view screen. The grizzled human veteran nodded grimly. "Good work out there. We've been tracking the Corsairs for months. They're pawns in a larger game, and we need to compare notes. Meet us at these coordinates. It's a secret base where we can regroup safely." Karina acknowledged the transmission, her attention split between their new ally and Gary's deteriorating condition. As they journeyed towards the Resistance base, she worked tirelessly alongside Zara and the Zin, combining Tellarite medical knowledge with Zin biotechnology in an attempt to stabilize Gary. His condition worsened despite their efforts. Gary drifted in and out of consciousness, mumbling about ancient empires and superweapons. Karina held his hand, her heart heavy with concern. "The weapon," Gary murmured, his eyes snapping open for a moment. "It's not just destruction, it's the key to unlocking everything." Before Karina could ask for clarification, Gary slipped back into unconsciousness. She exchanged a worried look with Zara, both aware that time was running out. As they approached the Resistance base, hidden within a dense asteroid field, Karina steeled herself for what lay ahead. They had escaped one danger only to face new challenges. With Gary's life hanging in the balance and the fate of multiple species potentially at stake, she knew their journey was nowhere near the end. The resistance base loomed before them, a haven in the vastness of space. As they docked, medical teams rushed to meet them, ready to take Gary to their advanced facilities. Karina watched as they whisked him away, her heart torn between following and meeting with Admiral Thorne to share their crucial intelligence. With a deep breath, she straightened her shoulders and prepared to face whatever came next. The answers they sought about the superweapon, the Corsair's plans, and Gary's condition lay somewhere ahead, waiting to be uncovered. As the Resistance base's docking clamps secured their ship, Karina felt a mix of relief and urgency wash over her. She glanced at Gary, his face pale and drawn, before following the medical team as they rushed him to the advanced treatment facilities. Hours passed as Karina paced outside the medical bay, her mind racing with possibilities. When the chief medical officer finally emerged, his expression was grave. "We've stabilized him for now, but his condition is unique," the doctor explained. "The ancient technology isn't just interfacing with his mind, it's altering his very DNA." Karina's eyes widened. "What does that mean for Gary?" "It means we're in uncharted territory," the doctor replied. "The transformation is the source of his abilities, but it's also killing him. We need to either complete the process or reverse it entirely." Determined to find a solution, Karina immersed herself in the data they'd recovered from the Corsair station. She spent hours combing through ancient medical records, her enhanced Tellarite intellect processing information at an astonishing rate. As dawn broke on the asteroid base, Karina burst into the medical bay, her eyes bright with discovery. "I found something, an ancient outpost with a genetic stabilization chamber. It could be the key to saving Gary." She presented her findings to Admiral Thorne and the Resistance leadership. The chamber not only offered hope for Gary, but also the potential to create more individuals capable of interfacing with ancient systems. Thorne nodded, his weathered face set with drive. "We'll split our forces. I'll lead the main assault on the superweapon. Karina, you'll take a small team to secure this stabilization chamber." As they finalized the mission parameters, alarms blared throughout the base. A technician's voice crackled over the intercom. "Massive alien coalition fleet detected entering the sector. They're searching in a grid pattern." Thorne's expression hardened. "We need to move now. Karina, get your team ready. We'll provide what cover we can, but you'll need to use every trick in the book to slip past that fleet." Karina rushed to prepare her team, selecting a mix of human, Tellarite, and Zin specialists. As they boarded their advanced stealth ship, Gary insisted on joining despite his weakened state. "I need to be there," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "My connection to the ancient tech, it might be our only advantage." Karina helped him aboard, knowing he was right but hating the risk. As the base initiated emergency evacuation protocols, their ship slipped out into the void of space. The journey pushed their stealth technology to its limits. Karina piloted the ship through the searching coalition fleet, her heart pounding as massive warships passed within kilometers of their position. Gary drifted in and out of consciousness, occasionally providing crucial navigational insights during moments of lucidity. Halfway to their destination, Gary's eyes snapped open, glowing with an otherworldly light. "I can see it," he gasped. "The chamber, it's not alone. There's an entire facility. But something's wrong." Karina leaned in, concern etched on her face. "What do you mean, Gary?" "Corsairs," he managed before another wave of pain racked his body. "A rogue faction. They're there, trying to activate other systems." As they approached the ancient outpost, Karina's sensors confirmed Gary's vision. The facility pulsed with erratic energy signatures, evidence of the Corsairs' reckless attempts to harness technology they didn't understand. "We need to move fast," Karina announced to her team. "The Corsairs might destroy everything before we can reach the chamber." They initiated their insertion plan, using Gary's insights to bypass the outer defenses. As they penetrated deeper into the facility, they encountered signs of the Corsairs' destructive presence. Scorch marks on ancient walls, disabled security systems, and the occasional body of a Corsair who had fallen victim to the facility's automated defenses. Suddenly, the entire structure shuddered. Lights flashed and hidden panels slid into place, cutting off corridors. Karina found herself separated from the rest of the team, alone with Gary. "The security systems," Gary groaned, sweat beading on his forehead. "The Corsairs triggered them. We need to hurry." Karina supported Gary's weight as they navigated through increasingly unstable sections of the outpost. The walls seemed to shift around them, ancient machinery awakening after millennia of slumber. As they rounded a corner, they came face to face with a group of Corsair scientists attempting to force open a sealed door. Gary's eyes widened in recognition. "That room," he whispered to Karina. "It contains components we need for the stabilization process. We can't let them destroy it." Karina assessed the situation quickly. 5 Corsairs, all armed, but focused on the door. She glanced at Gary, saw the persistence in his eyes despite his weakened state, and made her decision. "Follow my lead," she murmured, easing Gary to the ground behind cover. "And be ready to run." Karina took a deep breath, her Tellarite muscles tensing for action. In one fluid motion, she sprang from cover, her enhanced speed carrying her towards the unsuspecting Corsairs. Time seemed to slow as adrenaline surged through her system. The first Corsair fell before he could even turn, Karina's fist connecting with the back of his skull with brutal efficiency. She spun, using the momentum to launch herself at the second, her legs sweeping out in a low kick that sent him crashing to the ground. Alerted by the commotion, the remaining 3 Corsairs turned, raising their weapons. Karina ducked and weaved, the air sizzling with energy bolts as she closed the distance. She reached the 3rd Corsair, grabbed his arm, and used his own weapon against his comrades, squeezing the trigger and downing one more. The last standing Corsair charged, using his superior size to try and overpower her. Karina used his momentum against him, redirecting his charge into the wall with a sickening crunch. As the final Corsair struggled to rise from where she had kicked him, Karina delivered a precise strike to a nerve cluster, rendering him unconscious. The entire confrontation had lasted less than 30 seconds. Breathing heavily, Karina turned to check on Gary. To her surprise, he was already limping towards her, his eyes fixed on the sealed door. "We need to hurry, Woe," he said, his voice stronger than it had been in days. "I can feel the chamber calling to me, but the Coalition fleet, they're getting close. We don't have much time." As if to emphasize his point, a distant explosion rocked the facility. The Resistance fleet had engaged the Coalition forces, buying them precious time to complete their mission. Karina nodded, helping Gary to the door. "Then let's not waste it. How do we get this open?" Gary placed his hand on the ancient metal, closing his eyes in concentration. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a groan of protesting machinery, the door began to slide open, revealing a chamber filled with technology beyond their wildest imagination. As they stepped inside, the room hummed to life, responding to Gary's presence. Karina could only watch in awe as Gary moved with newfound purpose, his hands dancing over control panels with preternatural confidence. "This is it," he said, his voice filled with a mixture of hope and trepidation. "The key to completing my transformation, to saving my life." He turned to Karina, his eyes meeting hers. "But once we start this process, there's no going back. Are you sure about this?" Karina took his hand, squeezing it reassuringly. "I'm sure about you, Gary. Whatever happens, we face it together." With a nod, Gary turned back to the controls. As he began to activate the ancient machinery, the chamber filled with a soft, pulsing light. Karina could only watch, her heart racing, as Gary took the first steps towards an uncertain future. The genetic stabilization process had begun, but their mission was just the beginning. With Coalition forces bearing down on them and the rest of their team still unaccounted for, Karina knew that the real challenge was just beginning. As the genetic stabilization process began, Karina's attention was torn between Gary's transformation and the imminent threat of the approaching Corsairs. She knew they had precious little time before their enemies would be upon them. "Gary," she called out, her voice urgent, "we need to move fast. The Corsairs won't be far behind." Gary nodded, his face set with dedication as he surveyed the room. His eyes, now glowing with an otherworldly light, seemed to see beyond the physical constraints of their surroundings. "I have an idea," he said, his voice stronger than it had been in days. "Follow my lead." Without warning, Gary sprinted toward the sealed door, his hand outstretched. As his fingers made contact with the control panel, the ancient systems hummed to life, responding to his touch. The door slid open with a hiss, revealing a group of startled Corsair scientists on the other side. Karina didn't hesitate. She launched herself forward, her Tellarite strength propelling her into the midst of the unprepared Corsairs. Her fist connected with the jaw of the nearest scientist, sending him sprawling. She spun, ducking under a wild swing from another, and swept his legs out from under him. As Karina engaged the Corsairs in close combat, Gary focused on disrupting their communication systems. His fingers danced over nearby consoles, his newfound connection to the ancient technology allowing him to interface seamlessly with the facility systems. "Their comms are down," Gary called out, his voice strained with effort. "They can't call for backup." Karina acknowledged him with a quick nod as she grappled with a particularly stubborn Corsair. She could feel the surge of adrenaline coursing through her enhanced body, her muscles responding with lightning speed to every threat. In the chaos of the fight, one of the Corsair scientists managed to activate a device they had been studying. A pulse of energy erupted from the small cylindrical object, washing over the room in a wave of shimmering light. Gary gasped as the energy interacted with his altered physiology. His connection to the ancient systems, already heightened by the stabilization process, suddenly amplified tenfold. Information flooded his mind, overwhelming his senses. "Karina," he called out, his voice tight with strain, "I can access everything. The security protocols, the facility's defenses, it's all open to me." With a thought, Gary triggered the facility's internal security measures. Barriers slammed down, sealing off corridors and trapping the remaining Corsairs. Alarms blared throughout the complex, disorienting their enemies and buying them precious time. As the last Corsair fell to Karina's precise strikes, she turned to Gary, concern etched on her face. "Are you all right? What just happened?" Gary shook his head, trying to clear the flood of information. "That device, it interacted with my altered DNA. It's like I'm directly connected to the facility now, but it's fading. We need to move quickly." They hurried to secure the room containing the critical components for the genetic stabilization process. Inside, they discovered a treasure trove of advanced medical equipment and data crystals. "This could be crucial," Karina said as she quickly gathered the items. "Not just for your treatment, but for the resistance as well." As they prepared to move towards the main chamber, Gary's enhanced connection began to wane. His steps faltered, and Karina had to support his weight as they navigated the winding corridors. "Hold on, Gary," she urged, feeling his body tremble with exertion. "We're almost there." They reached the central chamber housing the genetic stabilization equipment, only to find it protected by a shimmering energy field. Gary studied the barrier, his brow furrowed in concentration. "It requires specific genetic markers to deactivate," he explained, his voice weak. "My altered DNA. It might be the key." Karina watched anxiously as Gary approached the field's control panel. He placed his hand on the ancient interface, gritting his teeth against the obvious pain the connection caused him. As Gary struggled to deactivate the energy field, the chamber around them came to life. Lights flickered on, and a disembodied voice filled the air. "Anomalous genetic structure detected," the voice announced, its tone neither male nor female. "Initiating primary protocol." Gary's eyes widened in recognition. "It's the facility's AI. It's talking to me." The AI's voice continued, revealing the true purpose of the facility, a safeguard against the misuse of the ancient empire's technology. It spoke of Gary's unique genetic structure, a bridge between the old empire and the current galactic civilizations. "A choice must be made," the AI declared. "Complete the transformation and gain full access to the empire's knowledge, or reverse the process and return to your original state. Both options will stabilize your condition, but the consequences of your choice will echo through the galaxy." Karina stepped forward, her voice urgent. "Gary, think about this. We don't know what full transformation could do to you. There might be another way to fight the coalition without risking your humanity." Gary turned to her, conflict clear in his eyes. But think of the advantage this could give us, Karina. The knowledge, the technology, it could turn the tide of the war. Before they could debate further, the facility's systems blared a warning. The AI's voice cut through the alarms. Hostile forces detected. Facility-wide lockdown imminent. Make your choice now or risk being sealed within. Gary looked at Karina, his decision made. I have to do this. It's our best chance. With Karina's help, Gary entered the stabilization chamber. As the process began, enveloping him in a cocoon of energy, Karina took up a defensive position at the entrance. The sound of approaching corsairs echoed through the corridors. Karina readied herself for battle, her enhanced muscles tensed for action. As the first wave of enemies rounded the corner, she launched herself into the fray, determined to buy Gary the time he needed. Inside the chamber, Gary's mind expanded, filled with the knowledge and memories of a long-dead empire. He struggled to maintain his sense of self as alien thoughts and experiences threatened to overwhelm him. Suddenly, the chamber's energy field began to pulsate erratically. The AI's voice rang out in warning. Instability detected. Potential overload imminent. Karina, locked in combat with the corsairs, heard the alarm. She glanced back at the chamber, seeing the dangerous fluctuations in the energy field. In that moment, she faced an impossible choice. Risk interrupting the process and potentially save Gary from an overload, or trust in his ability to see it through and continue fighting off their attackers. Time seemed to slow as Karina weighed her options, the fate of their mission hanging in the balance. The distant sounds of the larger battle between the Resistance and the alien coalition served as a grim reminder of what was at stake. With the outcome of Gary's transformation uncertain and enemies closing in from all sides, Karina steeled herself to make a decision that could change everything. Karina's heart raced as she made her decision. She couldn't risk interrupting the process now, not when they were so close. Trusting in Gary's resilience, she redoubled her efforts against the advancing corsairs. Her enhanced muscles tensed as she ducked under a wild swing from one attacker, using their momentum to throw them into their comrades. The air crackled with energy bolts as she weaved through the onslaught, her movements a blur of precision and power. Behind her, the chamber housing Gary pulsed with an otherworldly light. The AI's voice echoed through the room, its tone urgent. Stabilization process at critical juncture. Maintain isolation protocols. Karina gritted her teeth, her focus split between the relentless assault and the whirring fluctuations in the energy field surrounding Gary. She could only hope her faith in him wasn't misplaced. Suddenly, the chamber's erratic pulsations ceased. The energy field stabilized, its glow settling into a steady, ethereal hum. Karina allowed herself a moment of relief before launching back into the fray. The pod hissed open, releasing a cloud of vapor. Through the dissipating mist, Gary emerged, his appearance subtly altered. His skin shimmered faintly, and his eyes glowed with an inner light that spoke of power beyond human comprehension. Gary's gaze swept the room, taking in the chaos with newfound clarity. His movements were fluid, almost predatory, as he stepped from the pod and joined Karina in the fight. Gary, Karina called out, concern evident in her voice, despite the ongoing battle. I'm here, he responded, his voice carrying a resonant quality it hadn't possessed before. And I understand now. Without warning, Gary's hands flew to a nearby console. His fingers danced across the controls with inhuman speed and precision. The facility around them sprang to life, ancient systems awakening at his command. Energy barriers materialized, cutting off the Corsair's advance. Automated drones, their designs unlike anything Karina had ever seen, deployed from hidden compartments in the walls. The tide of battle shifted in an instant, the Corsairs finding themselves outmatched and outmaneuvered. As the last of their attackers fell or retreated, Karina turned to Gary. What did you do? Gary's eyes flickered with streams of data as he interfaced with the facility's systems. I activated the outpost's defenses. It's all clear to me now, Karina. The layouts, the technology, the purpose of this place, it's all here in my mind. They moved swiftly through the complex, gathering the critical components for the genetic stabilization process and downloading vast amounts of data from the facility's archives. Gary's newfound connection to the systems allowed them to navigate effortlessly, avoiding the remaining pockets of Corsair resistance. As they approached the docking bay, where their stealth ship waited, the AI's voice echoed through the corridors. Incoming transmission from Allied forces. Admiral Thorne's fleet has engaged the alien coalition. Temporary window for undetected escape available. Gary's expression tightened. We need to move quickly. The coalition is deploying experimental weapons based on fragments of ancient tech. If they fully harness that power... He didn't need to finish the thought. The urgency of their mission pressed upon them both as they entered the docking bay. A group of elite Corsair commandos lay in wait, their weapons trained on the entrance. But Gary, drawing upon his enhanced senses and newfound knowledge, had anticipated the ambush. 3 o'clock, hi, he whispered to Karina. 2 more at our 6. I'll take the ones on the left. They burst into action, Karina's Tellarite strength complementing Gary's preternatural speed and precision. The commandos, caught off guard by their target's enhanced abilities, fell quickly to the coordinated assault. As they boarded their ship, Gary placed his hand on the control panel. The vessel's systems came alive, ancient technology integrating seamlessly with the modern equipment. Hold on, Gary warned as he interfaced with the ship's navigation. I'm plotting a course that should keep us off their scanners. The ship lifted off, its stealth capabilities enhanced beyond their original specifications. As they cleared the planet's atmosphere, the vastness of space opened before them, teeming with the distant flashes of the ongoing battle between the Resistance and the alien coalition. In the quiet of their escape, Karina finally had a moment to study Gary closely. Despite the physical changes, she could still see the man she knew beneath the otherworldly glow. Gary, she began, her voice soft. Are you... still you? He turned to her, his luminous eyes softening. Reaching out, he took her hand in his. I'm still me, Karina. Everything I was, everything we've been through together, it's all still here. My feelings for you haven't changed. If anything, they've grown stronger. Karina squeezed his hand, relief washing over her. As they set a course to rendezvous with Admiral Thorne's fleet, Gary's expression grew distant, his mind processing the vast amounts of information now at his disposal. There's so much here, Karina, he murmured. Coordinates for other outposts, technologies that could turn the tide of the war. But, he hesitated, his brow furrowing. What is it? Karina pressed, sensing his unease. Gary's eyes met hers, filled with a mixture of wonder and concern. I've found information about the fall of the ancient empire, the superweapon we've been seeking. It played a role in their destruction. We need to be careful about how we proceed. As the rendezvous point with the Resistance fleet grew closer on their navigational display, the weight of their discoveries settled upon them. The knowledge they carried had the potential to change the course of the war, but it also posed new, unforeseen risks. Gary and Karina exchanged a look of shared purpose. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The Resistance, Earth, and the fate of the galactic realm hung in the balance as they prepared to share their findings with Admiral Thorne and chart their next move against the alien coalition. Coalition. As they prepared to share their findings with Admiral Thorne and chart their next move, the ship's sensors suddenly lit up with an unexpected energy signature. Gary's eyes widened as he processed the information, flooding through his enhanced senses. Karina, we've got something. There's a cloaked outpost hidden in that asteroid field. Karina leaned forward, studying the readout. Coalition? Gary nodded, his fingers dancing across the control panel. It appears to be a forward operating base for their experimental weapons program. The energy signatures match fragments of ancient tech. They exchanged a look, both recognizing the opportunity before them. Karina spoke first. We should investigate. This could be crucial intel for the Resistance. Agreed, Gary said, already adjusting their course. I'm enhancing our stealth capabilities. We should be able to slip through undetected. As they navigated the treacherous asteroid field, Gary's connection to the ship's systems allowed him to weave through the floating rocks with preternatural precision. Karina watched in awe as he guided them closer to the hidden outpost. There, Gary pointed to a barely visible shimmer against the backdrop of space, a maintenance airlock. it's our way in. Using a combination of Gary's technopathic abilities and Karina's Tellarite strength, they bypassed the airlock's security measures and slipped inside the facility. The corridor before them hummed with energy, the air thick with the scent of ozone and machinery. "We need to split up," Gary whispered, his eyes glowing as he interfaced with the outpost systems. "I'll head for the central data core. You take the weapons testing area." Karina nodded, her muscles tensing in anticipation. "Be careful, Gary. We don't know what we're walking into." As they parted ways, Gary moved silently through the corridors, his enhanced senses alert for any sign of detection. He reached the data core, a towering structure of pulsing light and humming processors. Without hesitation, he placed his hand on the main terminal, his mind merging with the coalition systems. Data flooded his consciousness: weapon schematics, test results, and strategic plans. But as he sifted through the information, something darker emerged. Evidence of a conspiracy within the coalition itself, a faction developing these weapons, not just for the war effort, but for an internal power grab. Meanwhile, Karina crept through the weapons testing area, her enhanced strength allowing her to move with surprising stealth for her size. She observed prototype energy weapons that crackled with impossibly strong power, defensive systems that shimmered with energy fields beyond current scientific understanding. With practiced efficiency, she began sabotaging key components, her knowledge of engineering allowing her to cause damage that would be difficult to detect or repair quickly. As she worked, she overheard two officers talking in hushed tones. "The attack on the Earth colony is set. Once we demonstrate the power of these weapons, the current leadership will have no choice but to fully commit to our strategy." Karina's blood ran cold. They needed to warn Earth's defenses, and fast. As if sensing her urgency, Gary's voice came through their secure comm link. "Karina, we need to move. I've got what we came for and I've erased our tracks. Meet me at the extraction point." They rendezvoused near the airlock, but as they prepared to leave, a patrol rounded the corner. Time seemed to slow as Gary and Karina reacted in perfect synchronization. Gary's enhanced reflexes allowed him to anticipate the coalition soldiers' moves, calling out warnings to Karina even as he engaged the first attacker. Karina's strength came into play as she effortlessly threw one soldier into another, sending them crashing into the wall. Alarms blared throughout the facility as they fought their way back to their ship. Gary interfaced with the outpost systems, sealing doors behind them and misdirecting reinforcements. Karina provided cover fire, her shots finding their marks with unerring accuracy. They reached their ship just as a wave of coalition forces poured into the hangar. Gary's hands flew over the controls, integrating the stolen data to enhance their ship's capabilities. The engines roared to life as Karina laid down suppressing fire, buying them the seconds they needed to lift off. As they shot out of the hangar, coalition ships gave chase. Gary pushed their vessel to its limits, weaving through the asteroid field at breakneck speeds. Karina manned the weapons, her instincts combining with Gary's predictive abilities to keep their pursuers at bay. They finally broke free of the asteroid field, setting a course for Admiral Thorne's fleet. As the immediate danger passed, they turned their attention to the data they'd stolen. "The coalition is planning an attack on a major Earth colony," Karina said, her voice tight with concern. "We need to warn them." Gary nodded, his eyes distant as he processed the information. "There's more. Other hidden bases, weapons caches. This could change everything for the Resistance." As they approached the rendezvous point, they shared a look of understanding. Their unique abilities and deepening bond had made them a formidable team, but the weight of their discoveries pressed heavily upon them. Admiral Thorne's flagship loomed before them, its massive form a testament to the Resistance's tenacity. As they prepared to dock, Gary and Karina steeled themselves for the briefing ahead. The information they carried had the power to shift the course of the war, but it also raised new questions about the ancient technology they sought in the risk it posed. The docking clamps engaged with a resounding thud, marking the end of one perilous journey and the beginning of another. As they rose to disembark, Gary and Karina knew that the choices they would make in the coming hours could determine the fate of Earth and its allies in the face of an ever-growing threat. As the docking clamps engaged, Gary and Karina exchanged a look of persistence. The weight of their discoveries pressed heavily upon them as they prepared to disembark. The moment they stepped off their ship, they were met by a stern-faced officer who saluted crisply. "Lieutenant Commander Reeves, Admiral Thorne requests your immediate presence in the war room. Follow me, please." Gary and Karina fell in step behind the officer, their footsteps echoing through the bustling corridors of the flagship. Crew members hurried past, their faces etched with a mixture of curiosity and concern at the sight of the newly transformed Gary. The war room's doors slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a gathering of the Resistance's top brass. Admiral Thorne stood at the head of a large holographic display, his weathered face illuminated by the flickering light of tactical projections. "Reeves, Karina," Thorne nodded, his voice gruff but tinged with urgency. "Report." Without preamble, Gary stepped forward and placed his hand on the central console. The room's lights dimmed as a flood of data streamed from his enhanced mind into the ship's systems. Three-dimensional projections sprang to life, detailing the Coalition's hidden outpost, weapon schematics, and strategic plans. "Sir, we've uncovered evidence of an imminent attack on a major Earth colony," Gary explained, his luminous eyes scanning the faces of the assembled leaders. "But there's more. We've also discovered a conspiracy within the Coalition itself, a faction developing these weapons for their own internal power grab." A murmur of shock rippled through the room. Admiral Thorne's brow furrowed as he studied the projected data. "This changes everything. We need to act fast." For the next hour, Gary and Karina detailed their findings, answering rapid-fire questions from the Resistance leadership. As the briefing concluded, Admiral Thorne's expression hardened with tenacity. "Reeves, Karina, I'm assigning you to lead a task force to defend the Earth colony," he announced. "Your mission is twofold: protect the colony and capture one of the Coalition's experimental weapons for study." The Admiral gestured to a sleek, holographic render of a ship that appeared above the central console. "This is the Starfire, our latest retrofitted vessel. It's designed to interface with your unique abilities, Reeves. It'll be yours to command for this mission." As Gary and Karina absorbed the details of their assignment, the war room doors opened once more. A woman with sharp features and piercing green eyes strode in, her lab coat billowing behind her. "Ah, perfect timing," Thorne said. "Lieutenant Commander Reeves, Karina, meet Dr. Lyra Vex. She's our top xenobiologist and will be joining your crew on the Starfire. Her expertise will be crucial in analyzing any captured Coalition technology." Dr. Vex nodded curtly, her gaze lingering on Gary's altered appearance. "I look forward to working with you both. I've already begun developing countermeasures against some of the Coalition's biological weapons, based on the data you've brought us." With their team assembled and mission parameters set, Gary, Karina, and Dr. Vex made their way to the Starfire. The ship hummed with energy as Gary interfaced with its systems, feeling the advanced technology respond to his touch. "Prepare for hyperspace jump," Gary announced, his voice resonating through the ship's comm system. "We have precious little time before the Coalition strikes." The Starfire's engines roared to life, and in a blur of streaking stars, they plunged into hyperspace. As they hurtled towards the Earth colony, Karina coordinated with the task force ships while Dr. Vex pored over the Coalition weapon data. Hours later, they emerged from hyperspace near the colony, a gleaming jewel of humanity floating in the vast expanse of space. Gary immediately connected with the colony's defensive systems, his mind racing to enhance their capabilities. "Karina, take a team planetside," he instructed. "Coordinate with the local militia and prepare ground defenses. Dr. Vex and I will oversee the space defenses from here." Karina nodded, her eyes meeting Gary's for a moment before she headed for the shuttle bay. As she descended to the colony's surface, Gary's enhanced senses detected a disturbance at the edge of the system. "Multiple hyperspace signatures detected," he announced, his voice tense. "Coalition fleet incoming. Brace for impact." The void of space erupted into chaos as the Coalition fleet materialized. At its center loomed a massive dreadnought, its hull filled with weaponry. Energy readings from the behemoth spiked, signaling the presence of the experimental superweapon. "All ships, battle formations," Gary commanded, his mind interfacing seamlessly with the Starfire, and the entire resistance fleet. Prepare to engage. The silence of space shattered as both fleets opened fire. Streams of energy crisscrossed the battlefield, punctuated by explosions as ships on both sides fell victim to the onslaught. On the colony's surface, Karina led squads of resistance fighters and local militia through the streets. The ground shook as coalition drop ships breached the atmosphere, disgorging waves of alien soldiers. "Hold the line," Karina shouted, her enhanced strength allowing her to hurl a piece of debris at an approaching coalition squad. The aliens scattered, giving her team time to set up a defensive perimeter. Back in space, Gary guided the Starfire through the chaotic melee, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to predict and evade enemy fire with uncanny accuracy. "Dr. Vex, I'm detecting unusual energy fluctuations from the Coalition Dreadnought. Any insights?" The xenobiologist's fingers flew over her console as she analyzed the readings. "It's powering up the superweapon. We need to disable that ship now, or the colony won't stand a chance." Gary's mind raced, formulating a plan. "Prepare a boarding team. We're going to take that weapon out from the inside." As the Starfire carved a path through the Coalition fleet, Gary's consciousness expanded, interfacing with the Dreadnought systems. He probed for weaknesses, searching for a way to bypass its formidable defenses. "There," he murmured, his eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. "I've found our way in." The Starfire dove towards the massive ship, weaving through a hail of enemy fire. As they approached, Gary activated a series of precise energy pulses, creating a temporary gap in the Dreadnought's shields. "Boarding team, go," he commanded. Dr. Vex and a squad of elite resistance fighters launched from the Starfire, their boarding craft slipping through the gap in the Dreadnought's defenses. As they disappeared into the bowels of the enemy ship, Gary turned his attention back to the battle raging around them. The fate of the Earth colony now hung in the balance, with the outcome resting on the success of their daring gambit. As the Starfire engaged in a deadly dance with Coalition fighters, Gary's enhanced senses remained attuned to the unfolding drama both in space and on the planet's surface, knowing that every second could mean the difference between victory and annihilation. Catastrophe. As the Starfire engaged in a deadly dance with Coalition fighters, Gary's enhanced senses remained attuned to the unfolding drama, both in space and on the planet's surface, knowing that every second could mean the difference between victory and defeat. Suddenly, a transmission crackled through the ship's communication system, cutting through the chaos of battle. Gary's cybernetic implants instantly recognized the signal's unique signature. It was unlike anything he had encountered before. "Gary, what is it?" Dr. Vex asked, her eyes fixed on the console as she monitored the boarding team's progress. "An unknown transmission," Gary replied, his luminous eyes flickering as he processed the information. "It's coordinates and something else, a message, but encrypted in a way I've never seen." As Gary worked to decipher the transmission, Karina's voice came through the comm. "Gary, we've secured the ground defenses, but we're picking up strange energy readings from orbit. What's happening up there?" "Stand by, Karina," Gary responded, his mind racing. "I think we've stumbled onto something big." With a final push of his enhanced abilities, Gary broke through the encryption. The message unfurled in his mind, revealing glimpses of an ancient outpost, a hidden cache of knowledge that could change the course of the war. "Dr. Vex, we need to get this information to Admiral Thorne immediately," Gary said, his voice tight with urgency. "This could be the key to understanding the superweapon, and maybe even stopping it." As the battle raged around them, Gary made a split-second decision. He opened a secure channel to Admiral Thorne's flagship, transmitting the coordinates and a brief summary of the mysterious message. "Admiral," Gary reported, "we've received intel on a hidden outpost that may hold crucial information about the ancient empire and their technology. Request permission to investigate once we've secured the colony." Admiral Thorne's holographic image flickered to life on the bridge. His eyes narrowed as he processed the information. "Granted, Reeves, but first finish the job at hand. That colony needs you." With revitalized commitment, Gary refocused on the battle. He guided the Starfire through the Coalition's defenses, providing cover fire for the boarding team as they fought their way to the superweapons control center. Hours passed in a blur of tactical maneuvers, explosions, and tense moments. Finally, Dr. Vex's voice crackled over the comm. "We've done it. The superweapon is offline, and we've secured the Dreadnought's bridge." A cheer went up from the Resistance fleet as the coalition forces, now in disarray, began to retreat. On the planet's surface, Karina and her team pushed back the last of the invading forces, securing the colony's safety. As the dust settled and the immediate threat passed, Gary, Karina, and Dr. Vex regrouped aboard the Starfire. The weight of their victory was tempered by the knowledge of what lay ahead. "Admiral Thorne has approved our mission to investigate the coordinates," Gary informed them, his eyes glowing softly in the dim light of the bridge. "We leave as soon as we've completed our debrief and resupplied." Karina nodded, her expression a mix of exhaustion and excitement. "Any idea what we might find at this outpost?" "Nothing concrete," Gary replied, interfacing with the ship's systems to bring up a holographic map of their destination. "But if the transmission is to be believed, it could be a treasure trove of information about the ancient empire and their technology." Dr. Vex leaned in, studying the projected star chart. "The coordinates place it in a remote system, far from any known coalition or Earth Alliance outposts. It's the perfect place to hide something you don't want found." As the Starfire disengaged from the planet's orbit and set course for the rendezvous point with Admiral Thorne's fleet, the team began their preparations. Gary immersed himself in the ship's systems, optimizing their capabilities for the long journey ahead. Karina ran diagnostics on their weapons and defenses, ensuring they were prepared for any potential threats. Dr. Vex pored over the data they had gathered from the Coalition Dreadnought, searching for any clues that might help them understand what they would find at the mysterious outpost. In the quiet moments between preparations, Gary and Karina found themselves drawn to each other. The intensity of their recent experiences had forged a bond between them that went beyond mere partnership. As they stood together in the observation deck, watching the stars streak by, Karina placed a hand on Gary's arm. "We make a good team," she said softly, her eyes meeting his. Gary nodded, feeling the warmth of her touch even through his altered skin. "We do. I couldn't imagine facing what's ahead with anyone else." As the Starfire journeyed towards its rendezvous with Admiral Thorne's fleet, the team couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the cusp of something monumental. The hidden outpost held secrets that could reshape their understanding of the universe and potentially turn the tide of the war. But as they prepared to embark on this new mission, they knew that whatever they discovered would come with its own set of challenges and dangers. The vastness of space stretched out before them, holding both promise and peril. As Gary interfaced with the Starfire's navigation systems, plotting their course to the distant star system, he couldn't help but wonder what ancient wonders, or horrors, awaited them at the other end of their journey. Little did they know that their course was about to change dramatically. As the Starfire approached the coordinates of the mysterious outpost, proximity alarms blared throughout the ship. Gary's cybernetic eyes widened as he processed the readings. "Massive structure detected," he announced, his voice taut with surprise. It's a ship, an enormous ship, unlike anything I've ever seen." Karina rushed to the viewport, her enhanced vision zooming in on the colossal vessel. "That's no outpost," she breathed. "It's a superweapon." Dr. Vex joined them, her analytical mind already racing. "The ancient empire's technology, it must be." Gary's fingers flew over the control panel as he brought the Starfire to a halt. "We need to inform Admiral Thorne immediately. This changes everything." But as he opened a channel to the fleet, Karina placed a hand on his arm. "Wait," she said, her eyes locked on the ancient ship. "This is our chance. If we can secure that vessel, we could turn the tide of the entire war." Dr. Vex nodded emphatically. "Agreed. The scientific advancements alone could be revolutionary." Gary hesitated, weighing their options. After a moment, he made his decision. "You're right. We can't let this opportunity slip away. We're going aboard." With practiced efficiency, Gary guided the Starfire towards one of the massive docking bays on the ancient ship. As they approached, energy fields shimmered and parted, allowing them entry. The team secured their vessel and prepared to disembark. Stepping onto the deck of the colossal ship, they were immediately struck by its alien grandeur. Towering ceilings arched overhead, adorned with intricate patterns that seemed to shimmer and move. The air hummed with latent energy, a testament to the power coursing through the vessel's systems. Gary's cybernetic implants immediately began interfacing with the ship's technology. His eyes glowed as streams of data flooded his consciousness. "Incredible," he murmured. "The ship's systems are beyond anything we've encountered. I'm gaining access, but it's like trying to decipher a language made of pure mathematics." As Gary worked, Karina took point, her enhanced reflexes on high alert as she swept the immediate area for potential threats. Dr. Vex followed close behind, her scientific curiosity evident in her wide-eyed expression. "Let's move deeper into the ship," Karina suggested. "We need to find the control center." As they ventured further into the vessel's labyrinthine corridors, Gary's connection to the ship's systems grew stronger. "I think I can name this ship," he said suddenly. "Based on the data I'm seeing, let's call it the Genesis." They pressed on, marveling at the advanced technology surrounding them. Dr. Vex paused at a transparent panel, peering into a vast chamber filled with equipment she could scarcely comprehend. "These must be scientific facilities," she breathed. "The potential here is staggering. Rapid healing, genetic manipulation, even terraforming technology." Suddenly, Karina held up a hand, signaling the others to stop. "There's a chamber ahead," she whispered. "I'm detecting multiple life signs, but they're faint." The team cautiously approached the indicated room. As the door slid open, they found themselves facing rows upon rows of sleek, metallic pods. Each pod housed a humanoid figure, frozen in suspended animation. "Stasis pods," Dr. Vex gasped. "Hundreds of them. These must be survivors of the ancient empire." The weight of their discovery settled over the team. They now bore responsibility not only for the fate of humanity, but for these sleeping remnants of a long-lost civilization. Their contemplation was cut short as alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. Robotic guardians materialized from hidden compartments, their weapons trained on the intruders. "Defensive systems," Gary shouted, his mind racing to interface with the ship's controls. "I'm trying to deactivate them." Karina sprang into action, her enhanced strength and speed allowing her to engage the mechanical sentries. She weaved between laser blasts, her fists and feet connecting with satisfying crunches against metal chassis. As Gary struggled to shut down the Guardians, he inadvertently triggered another system. The deck beneath their feet shuddered, and a deep thrum reverberated through the ship's superstructure. "The engines!" Dr. Vex cried out, clinging to a nearby console for balance. "They're activating!" Gary's eyes widened as he processed the influx of data. "We're moving," he announced, his voice tight with urgency, "and fast. We've already left the star system." With renewed commitment, the team fought their way through the corridors, racing towards what Gary's scans indicated was the bridge. As they ran, viewport panels offered brief glimpses of the cosmos streaking by at impossible speeds. Finally, they burst onto the bridge, a vast chamber dominated by holographic displays and pulsing energy conduits. Gary immediately interfaced with the main control systems, his cybernetic implants glowing intensely as he grappled with the alien technology. "I've stabilized our course," he reported after several tense moments, "but the ship's locked onto a preset destination. It's another outpost, far across the galaxy." Before they could decide their next move, long-range sensors flashed an urgent warning. Karina's face paled as she interpreted the data. "Massive coalition fleet detected," she announced grimly. "They must have picked up the Genesis's activation signal. They're in pursuit, and they're closing fast." Dr. Vex's fingers flew over a nearby console. "The ship's defenses are incredible," she marveled, "but we barely understand how to use them." As the coalition fleet entered weapons range and opened fire, the Genesis's automated defense systems sprang to life. Energy shields effortlessly deflected the incoming barrage, but the team knew they couldn't rely solely on automation. "We need help," Gary said, his gaze sweeping over the bridge. "Someone who understands this technology." Dr. Vex nodded toward the stasis pods they had discovered earlier. We could revive one of the ancient empire's crew. It's risky, but it might be our only option. With no time to debate, the team rushed back to the stasis chamber. Gary's scans identified a pod containing a high-ranking scientific officer. As they initiated the revival process, the ship shuddered under the intensifying assault of the Coalition fleet. The pod hissed open, revealing a female alien with iridescent skin and multifaceted eyes. As she took her first breath in millennia, her gaze locked onto Gary, her expression a mixture of confusion and wonder. The team stood frozen, acutely aware of the battle raging beyond the ship's hull and the weight of the moment before them. The fate of the Genesis, its sleeping passengers, and perhaps the entire galaxy now hinged on their ability to communicate with this ancient being and secure her cooperation. As energy weapons flashed in the void of space outside, illuminating the bridge in staccato bursts of light, the newly awakened alien opened her mouth to speak. Speak! Her melodious voice filled the bridge, a cascade of unfamiliar sounds that Gary's cybernetic implants instantly began to process and translate. "I am Zara, Chief Science Officer of the Genesis," she said, her multifaceted eyes darting between the team members. "You have awakened me from stasis. Why?" Gary stepped forward, his implants glowing as he interfaced with the ship's systems. "We're under attack by a hostile fleet. We need your help to operate this vessel." Zara's iridescent skin shimmered as she absorbed the information. Without hesitation, she moved to a nearby console, her fingers dancing over the controls with practiced ease. "The Genesis possesses a cloaking mechanism," she explained, her voice calm despite the urgency of the situation. "We can use it to evade detection." Gary nodded, his mind merging with the ship's systems as Zara guided him through the activation process. "Initiating cloak now," he announced. The Genesis shuddered slightly as the cloaking field enveloped it. On the interfaces, they watched as the Coalition fleet's formation broke apart, their ships turning in confusion as they lost track of their target. Karina let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. "It worked. They can't see us." Dr. Vex approached Zara, her eyes alight with scientific curiosity. "This ship's capabilities are extraordinary. What was its original purpose?" Zara's expression grew solemn. "The Genesis was created as a safeguard against a cosmic threat that nearly destroyed our civilization. Its matter manipulation technology can repair damaged planets and create habitable worlds." As Zara spoke, Dr. Vex's fingers flew over a nearby console, absorbing data about the ship's scientific facilities. "The potential here is staggering," she murmured. "Advanced materials, revolutionary medicines." Gary, still connected to the ship's systems, suddenly stiffened. "I've uncovered a star map," he said, his voice tight with excitement. "It shows the locations of other ancient outposts and facilities across the galaxy." Karina frowned, her tactical mind already considering the implications. "We need to investigate these locations. They could provide crucial resources for our fight against the Coalition." Before they could discuss further, alarms blared through the bridge. Karina's hands flew over the tactical display. "Another Coalition fleet incoming," she reported grimly. "Even larger than the first. They're trying to cut off our escape routes." Zara's multifaceted eyes narrowed as she assessed the situation. "We can use the Genesis's matter manipulation technology to create a spatial distortion," she suggested. "It will allow us to slip past undetected. However, the maneuver has never been attempted before. It could strain the ship's systems." The team exchanged glances, weighing the risks. Finally, Gary nodded. "We don't have much choice. Let's do it." Working in tandem, Gary and Zara initiated the complex sequence to generate the spatial distortion. The Genesis groaned under the strain, its structure vibrating as it warped the very fabric of space-time around it. On the displays, they watched in awe as the massive Coalition fleet converged on their last known position. The enemy ships passed through the distorted space, their sensors unable to penetrate the anomaly. "It's working," Karina breathed, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. "We're clear." As the immediate danger passed, the team took stock of their situation. The spatial distortion maneuver had drained significant power from the Genesis's systems, forcing them to plot a course through normal space to the nearest ancient outpost. Over the next few days, as the Genesis traveled through the stars, the team worked tirelessly to understand their new vessel and plan their next moves. Dr. Vex immersed herself in the ship's medical laboratories, making rapid advancements in her understanding of the ancient empire's technology. "I believe we could use this to enhance human and Tellarite physiology," she explained to the others during a briefing. "Create more individuals with abilities like Gary's." Meanwhile, Zara delved into the ship's historical records, her expression growing troubled as she uncovered information about the final days of her civilization. "There were conflicts," she told the team. "Ethical debates about the use of our technology. We must be cautious about how we proceed." As they approached the coordinates of the ancient outposts, tension filled the bridge. Long-range scans revealed signs of ongoing activity and the presence of life forms. "This outpost is active," Gary announced, his cybernetic eyes processing the incoming data. "Unlike where we found the Genesis." The team watched as a massive space station came into view, orbiting a gas giant. Its sleek alien architecture spoke of advanced technology beyond even that of the Genesis. Suddenly, energy readings spiked as the station's defenses activated, scanning the approaching vessel. "They've detected us," Karina reported, her hands hovering over the weapons controls. "What now?" The team exchanged glances, the weight of the moment pressing down on them. The outcome of this encounter could provide them with vital allies and resources in their fight against the coalition, or introduce an entirely new threat. As they waited for a response from the station, Gary felt Karina's hand slip into his. He gave it a gentle squeeze, drawing strength from her presence. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The bridge fell silent as a communication request flashed on the main screen. With a collective deep breath, the team prepared to make first contact with this unknown faction of the ancient empire. The next few moments could change the course of their mission and potentially the future of the cosmos itself. The communication request blinked insistently on the main screen. Gary's hand hovered over the controls, his eyes meeting those of his teammates. With a nod from Dr. Vex, he accepted the transmission. Before they could speak, a powerful tractor beam engaged, gently but firmly, guiding the Genesis towards the station. The ship's engines powered down automatically as they were pulled into a cavernous docking bay. "Well, that answers one question," Karina muttered, her hand instinctively moving to her weapon. As the Genesis settled into its berth, Gary interfaced with the ship's systems, ensuring all was secure. "Environmental readings are stable," he reported. "Atmosphere is compatible with ours." The team gathered at the airlock, tension evident in their postures. Zara's iridescent skin shimmered with anticipation as the doors slid open, revealing a vast reception area beyond. They stepped out onto the polished floor of the ancient outpost, senses alert for any sign of danger. A group of beings approached, their appearance strikingly similar to Zara's. At their head strode a tall, imposing figure whose very presence commanded attention. "Welcome to Outpost Sentinel," the leader's voice resonated through the chamber. "I am Zan, commander of this station. We've been expecting you." Dr. Vex stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overriding caution. "You've been active all this time? Monitoring the galaxy?" Zan nodded, his multifaceted eyes reflecting the light. "For centuries, we have maintained our vigil, watching over the younger species as they developed." He gestured for them to follow, leading the group through corridors of gleaming metal and pulsing energy conduits. They entered a vast command center, holographic displays filling the air with streams of data and galactic maps. "The Genesis and outposts like ours were created for a purpose far greater than you may realize," Zan began, his tone grave. "We face a threat that could destroy not just individual worlds, but entire star systems." Gary felt a chill run down his spine as Zan manipulated the holograms, revealing terrifying images of cosmic destruction. "The Void Eaters," Zan continued, "entities of unimaginable power that consume all in their path. Our civilization drove them back, but at a terrible cost." The implications of this revelation washed over the team. Their mission, once focused on the survival of Earth and its allies, had suddenly expanded to encompass the fate of the entire galaxy. "Our long-range sensors have detected signs of Void Eater activity at the edges of the galaxy," Sand's words fell heavily in the silent chamber. They have returned. Dr. Vex's mind raced with possibilities. Your medical technology, could it help us prepare for this threat? Zan led them to the station's advanced medical bay, a marvel of scientific achievement. Dr. Vex immersed herself in the data, working alongside the station's scientists to develop an enhancement procedure similar to Gary's transformation. Karina volunteered without hesitation. If it can give us an edge against these Void Eaters, I'm in. The procedure took days, during which Gary split his time between studying the Genesis's systems with Zan and monitoring Karina's progress. When she finally emerged, her eyes glowed with newfound power. "How do you feel?" Gary asked, unable to hide his concern. Karina flexed her hands, feeling the surge of enhanced strength. "Like I could take on a whole fleet single-handedly," she grinned. As Karina acclimated to her new abilities, Gary and Dr. Vex worked tirelessly with Zan's team to formulate a plan. They would use the Genesis as a mobile command center, coordinating with other awakened outposts to create a defensive network across the galaxy. "We'll need to reactivate long-dormant technology," Zan explained, bringing up a map of hidden caches and sleeping outposts, "and possibly awaken more of our people from stasis." As they made final preparations to depart, alarms blared through the station. On the main display, a massive coalition fleet appeared, led by a new type of ship that bore the unmistakable signs of reverse-engineered ancient technology. "They've followed us," Gary realized, his cybernetic implants glowing as he processed the tactical data. Zan's expression hardened. "We'll hold them off. You must go. Find allies. Gather resources. The destiny of the universe depends on it." The team raced back to the Genesis, now equipped with additional ancient technology. As they boarded, the sounds of battle erupted behind them, Zan's forces engaging the coalition fleet. Gary's hands flew over the controls, guiding the Genesis out of the docking bay. The ship's enhanced, faster-than-light drive hummed to life as he plotted a course for the nearest cache of ancient technology. As the Genesis disappeared into the depths of space, leaving the battle behind, the weight of their new mission settled over the crew. They were no longer just fighting for Earth, but for the survival of all life in the galaxy. In a quiet moment between jumps, Gary found Karina on the observation deck, her enhanced eyes scanning the star-filled void. "Quite a change of plans," he said softly, moving to stand beside her. Karina nodded, her expression thoughtful. "We always knew the stakes were high. Now they're just higher." Gary's hand found hers, their fingers intertwining. As the Genesis raced towards its next destination, they stood together, drawing strength from each other in the face of the monumental task ahead. Ahead, the vastness of space stretched before them, a silent promise of both peril and possibility. Their moment of reflection was cut short as the ship's sensors blared to life. Gary's cybernetic eyes widened as he processed the incoming data. "We've got an anomaly," he announced, his fingers flying over the control panel. "Long-range sensors are picking up a damaged vessel in a remote sector." Karina leaned in, her enhanced vision allowing her to see the readouts with perfect clarity. Unknown design. Could be a trap. Dr. Vex joined them at the console, her scientific curiosity piqued. Or it could be an opportunity. We need all the allies and information we can get. After a brief deliberation, the team decided to investigate. Gary adjusted their course, guiding the Genesis towards the mysterious ship. As they approached, the true extent of the vessel's damage became apparent. Its hull was scarred and twisted, evidence of a fierce battle. "I'm detecting a single life sign," Gary reported, his voice tight with concern. "It's faint, but it's there." Karina nodded, already moving towards the airlock. "We need to move fast. Gary, you're with me. Dr. Vex, be ready in the medical bay." The Genesis expertly maneuvered alongside the alien craft, extending a docking tube. Gary and Karina stepped through, their footsteps echoing in the eerie silence of the damaged ship. The air was thin but breathable, allowing them to remove their helmets. As they made their way through the twisted corridors, signs of battle surrounded them. Scorch marks marred the walls, and debris floated in the low gravity. Karina's enhanced strength came in handy as they cleared a path through the wreckage. "The life sign is coming from up ahead," Gary whispered, gesturing towards a sealed compartment. Together they gripped the edges of the door, their augmented muscles straining as they forced it open. The compartment beyond was dark, illuminated only by the flickering of damaged consoles. In the center, amidst the wreckage of what appeared to be the ship's bridge, lay an unconscious alien figure. Karina approached cautiously, her tactical training evident in every movement. The alien was humanoid, with striking purple skin and intricate bioluminescent markings. "Female, I think," Karina murmured. "She's in bad shape." Gary nodded, already calling for Dr. Vex. "We need to get her to the Genesis. Now." With utmost care, they transported the injured alien to the Genesis's medical bay. Dr. Vex immediately set to work, her hands moving with practiced efficiency as she assessed the alien's condition. "Her injuries are severe," Dr. Vex reported, "but with our advanced medical technology, I believe I can stabilize her." While Dr. Vex focused on saving their unexpected guest, Gary and Karina returned to the alien ship. They methodically searched the vessel, salvaging any useful technology and gathering what information they could. In what remained of the ship's data core, Gary made a crucial discovery. He interfaced directly with the alien computer, downloading its logs and database. "I've got it," he called to Karina. "This ship belongs to a species called the Zephyrians. They were a neutral race until the Coalition attacked them." Karina's expression hardened. "The Coalition's getting bolder. We need to warn the others." Their salvage mission complete, they returned to the Genesis. In the medical bay, Dr. Vex had made significant progress. The alien woman's condition had stabilized, though she remained unconscious. "I've managed to adapt our medical protocols using the biological data you recovered," Dr. Vex explained. "Her healing rate is remarkable. I expect she'll regain consciousness within hours." Gary nodded, already plotting their next move. "We need to resume our course to the ancient technology cache. Every moment counts." As the Genesis sped through space, the team gathered on the bridge to discuss their next steps. The revelation of the Coalition's attack on a neutral species added a new urgency to their mission. Hours passed, filled with tense planning and preparation. Then, without warning, the ship's sensors lit up once more. Gary's hands flew over the controls, his face grim. Multiple ships incoming, Coalition vessels, and something else. New designs, likely reverse-engineered from ancient tech. Karina took her position at the weapons console. "They're faster than before? This could get ugly." Gary pushed the Genesis's engines to their limits, the ship humming with barely suppressed power as they raced through space. The pursuing fleet grew closer with each passing moment, their superior speed evident. "We can't outrun them forever," Karina warned, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. As if in answer to her concerns, the space ahead of them shimmered with the telltale signs of an asteroid field. Gary's cybernetic eyes gleamed as he assessed their options. "Hold on," he warned, guiding the Genesis into the treacherous terrain. The ship weaved through the floating debris, each maneuver more daring than the last. Behind them, several pursuing vessels attempted to follow, only to be torn apart by the unforgiving asteroids. Just as it seemed they might escape, a new alert sounded from the medical bay. Dr. Vex's voice came over the intercom, tinged with excitement. "She's awake!" In the medical bay, the Zephyrian woman sat up, her luminescent markings pulsing with renewed energy. Her eyes, a deep violet, took in her surroundings with a mix of confusion and purpose. "I am Lyra," she spoke, her voice melodious despite her weakened state. "And I believe I can help you escape." "I am Lyra," she spoke, her voice melodious despite her weakened state. "And I believe I can help you." Gary and Karina exchanged glances, momentarily forgetting the pursuing Coalition fleet. Dr. Vex stepped forward, her eyes alight with curiosity. "How?" Gary asked, his cybernetic implants scanning Lyra for any signs of deception. Lyra winced as she sat up straighter. "My people, the Zephyrians, have been monitoring the Coalition's movements. We have information that could be vital to your mission." A violent shudder ran through the Genesis, snapping everyone's attention back to their immediate predicament. Gary's hands flew over the controls, guiding the ship through the treacherous asteroid field. "We need to lose them first," Karina said, her enhanced reflexes allowing her to target and destroy asteroids in their path. Gary nodded, his concentration evident in the pulsing glow of his cybernetic eyes. Lyra, if you have any insights on evading these ships, now would be the time. Lyra's bioluminescent markings flared as she focused. Their tracking systems have a weakness. If we can find a dense area of metallic asteroids, it should scramble their sensors long enough for us to slip away. With Lyra's guidance, Gary steered the Genesis deeper into the asteroid field. The pursuing coalition ships grew more cautious, their shots becoming less frequent and accurate. There! Lyra pointed to a cluster of asteroids with a distinctive metallic sheen. Gary didn't hesitate. He pushed the Genesis's engines to their limit, weaving through the metallic debris. The ship's hull groaned under the strain, but held firm. As they emerged on the other side of the cluster, Karina checked the sensors. "We've lost them," she announced, relief evident in her voice. The tension on the bridge eased slightly, but Gary kept the ship moving. "We're not out of danger yet. We need to find a safe place to regroup and make repairs." Dr. Vex spoke up, her eyes still on Lyra. "Perhaps our new friend can help with that as well?" Lyra nodded weakly. "There's a hidden Zephyrian outpost not far from here. It escaped the Coalition's attack and houses advanced technology that could aid your mission." Gary input the coordinates Lyra provided, setting the Genesis on a new course. As the ship drifted through uncharted space, its power slowly regenerating, the team focused on immediate concerns. "Karina, help me reroute power from non-essential systems," Gary said. "We need to speed up the recharge process." As they worked, Dr. Vex continued to monitor Lyra's recovery, administering treatments using the ship's advanced medical technology. The Zephyrian's condition improved rapidly, her bioluminescent markings growing brighter with each passing hour. Lyra shared more about her civilization as she regained her strength. The Zephyrians have long been a neutral race, focusing on scientific advancement rather than military might, but the Coalition saw our technology as a threat. Why didn't you fight back?" as Karina asked, pausing in her work. Lyra's markings dimmed slightly. "We tried, but we were unprepared for the scale of their assault. The outpost we're heading to is one of our last refuges." As the Genesis's power levels reached sufficient capacity, Gary initiated the faster-than-light drive. The ship lurched forward, stars blurring into streaks of light as they hurtled towards the hidden Zephyrian outpost. During the journey, Karina worked with Lyra to integrate Zephyrian defensive protocols into the Genesis's systems. Their collaboration led to a growing bond as they shared experiences and knowledge. "These stealth algorithms are incredible," Karina marveled, watching as the ship's energy signature became nearly undetectable. Lyra's markings pulsed with pride. "They've kept our remaining outposts hidden for months. With your ship's capabilities, they'll be even more effective." As they approached the coordinates of the hidden outpost, an unexpected obstacle appeared on their sensors. A massive debris field blocked their path, remnants of a fierce battle between Zephyrian forces and the alien coalition. Gary's cybernetic eyes narrowed as he assessed the situation. "This won't be easy, but we can make it through. Karina, be ready on weapons. We may need to clear a path." The Genesis slowed as it entered the debris field. Gary's enhanced reflexes were pushed to their limit as he navigated through the twisted metal and shattered hulls. Karina fired precise shots, vaporizing debris too large to avoid. Suddenly, the ship's sensors detected a faint distress signal. Gary zoomed in on the source, a damaged Zephyrian escape pod drifting among the wreckage. "We can't leave them," Lyra said, her voice urgent. Gary nodded, already adjusting their course. "Karina, prepare for a rescue operation. Dr. Vex, stand by in the medical bay." With expert precision, Gary maneuvered the Genesis alongside the escape pod. Karina led the boarding party, her enhanced strength allowing her to pry open the pod's damaged hatch. Inside, they found 3 unconscious Zephyrian scientists, their life support systems nearly depleted. Working quickly, Karina and her team transferred the survivors to the Genesis's medical bay. As Dr. Vex began emergency treatment procedures, Lyra gasped in recognition. "That's Nara," she said, pointing to one of the unconscious Zephyrians. "She's our foremost weapons expert. Her knowledge could be invaluable." With the rescue complete, Gary resumed their course towards the hidden outpost. As they neared their destination, long-range sensors detected a coalition patrol fleet in the vicinity. "This is where we see if those Zephyrian stealth upgrades work," Gary said, his voice tense as he guided the ship forward. The Genesis glided past the patrol ships, its enhanced stealth systems rendering it invisible to their sensors. The bridge crew held their breath until they were well clear of the danger. As they reached the coordinates Lyra had provided, the team found themselves facing what appeared to be empty space. Lyra stepped forward, her markings glowing as she transmitted a coded signal. Before their eyes, a massive asteroid shimmered and shifted, revealing a hidden docking bay. Gary guided the Genesis inside, where they were met by a group of armed Zephyrian guards. Lyra stepped forward, her markings pulsing with urgency as she explained their situation. After a tense moment, the guards lowered their weapons and escorted the team deeper into the outpost. As they entered the command center, Gary couldn't help but marvel at the advanced technology surrounding them. A tall Zephyrian with intricate silver markings approached, his eyes fixed on Lyra. "I am Zelos, commander of this outpost," he said, his voice deep and resonant. "Lyra, we feared you were lost, and you bring strangers to our sanctuary?" Lyra's markings flared. "They saved my life, Zelos, and they may be our last hope against both the Coalition and a threat that endangers the entire galaxy." Zelos's eyes widened as Lyra quickly explained the situation. He turned to Gary and the others, his expression grave. "It seems the fate of us all hangs in the balance," Zelos said. "Come, let us see how we can aid your mission." "Mission?" Gary nodded, his cybernetic eyes scanning the advanced technology surrounding them. "We appreciate your willingness to help, Commander Zelos. Time is of the essence." Before they could delve into strategy, alarms blared throughout the outpost. A Zephyrian technician rushed into the command center, her markings pulsing with urgency. "Commander, Coalition ships have breached our outer defenses," she reported. "They found us." Zelos's markings flared with commitment. "Initiate evacuation protocols. We must not let our technology fall into their hands." Gary turned to his team. "We need to buy them time. The Genesis can draw their fire while the Zephyrians escape." Without hesitation, they sprinted back to their ship. As they boarded, Gary's enhanced senses detected the first tremors of Coalition weapons fire impacting the outpost shields. "Karina, man the weapons," Gary ordered as he slid into the pilot's seat. "Dr. Vex, coordinate with the Zephyrian medical team to transfer any wounded. Lyra, I need you on communications." The Genesis's engines roared to life as Gary guided it out of the docking bay. The space beyond the outpost was chaos, filled with Coalition ships and fleeing Zephyrian vessels. Gary's cybernetic implants interfaced directly with the ship's systems, allowing him to process the battlefield data at superhuman speeds. He pushed the Genesis into a series of complex maneuvers, drawing enemy fire away from the escaping Zephyrian ships. Karina's enhanced reflexes proved invaluable as she targeted the Coalition vessels with pinpoint accuracy. The Genesis's weapons, now bolstered by Zephyrian upgrades, tore through enemy shields with unprecedented effectiveness. "Multiple hits confirm," Karina reported. "Their formation is breaking." As the battle intensified, Gary noticed a massive Coalition dreadnought moving into position. Its weapons began to charge, emitting an ominous glow. "Evasive maneuvers," Gary shouted, but it was too late. The dreadnought fired, unleashing a devastating energy pulse. The Genesis shuddered as the pulse grazed its hull, causing systems to flicker and fail. "We've lost power to engines and weapons," Karina called out, her hands flying over the controls. Gary fought to maintain control of the ship as it drifted, vulnerable in the midst of the battle. "Dr. Vex, we need those systems back online." In the engine room, Dr. Vex worked feverishly alongside Nara, the Zephyrian weapons expert they had rescued earlier. Together, they rerouted power and bypassed damaged circuits. "We've restored partial engine function," Dr. Vex's voice crackled over the intercom. "But weapons are still offline." Gary used the limited engine power to dodge incoming fire, but he knew they couldn't keep it up for long. Suddenly, the ship lurched as something latched onto their hull. "Boarding party detected," Karina announced, grabbing her weapon. "They're cutting through the airlock." As Karina led a team to repel the boarders, Gary continued his desperate dance through the battlefield. The corridors of the Genesis echoed with the sounds of close-quarters combat as Karina's enhanced abilities allowed her to take on multiple attackers at once. In the command center, Lyra worked tirelessly to reactivate the weapon systems. Her knowledge of Zephyrian technology proved crucial as she interfaced with the Genesis's alien systems. "Gary, I've bypassed the damaged circuits," Lyra called out. "Main cannon coming online now." The weapons console lit up just as the Coalition dreadnought moved into firing position once more. Gary didn't hesitate. He locked onto the dreadnought's weak points and fired. The Genesis's main cannon, supercharged by Zephyrian technology, lanced through space. It struck the dreadnought with devastating precision, piercing its shields and detonating its power core. The massive ship exploded in a brilliant flash, taking out several nearby Coalition vessels. "Now's our chance," Gary shouted, pushing the engines to their limit. He piloted the Genesis through the gap created by the dreadnought's destruction, narrowly avoiding the Coalition reinforcements jumping into the system. As they cleared the battle zone, Gary activated the faster-than-light drive. The stars blurred into streaks of light as the Genesis escaped, leaving the chaos behind. With immediate danger past, the crew assessed the damage. Multiple hull breaches had been sealed by emergency force fields, and several key systems were operating at reduced capacity. "We need to make repairs," Gary said, setting a course for a nearby uninhabited system. "And we need to regroup with the Zephyrian evacuation fleet." As they traveled, Dr. Vex tended to the wounded, while Karina and Lyra worked to restore damaged systems. Gary's mind raced, processing the events of the battle and planning their next move. Upon reaching the rendezvous point, the Genesis docked with the largest Zephyrian ship. Emergency repair crews swarmed over the battered vessel, patching hull breaches and replacing damaged components. In the Zephyrian ship's command center, Gary and Karina met with Zelos and the surviving Zephyrian leadership. The atmosphere was tense but filled with a sense of shared purpose. Zelos activated a holographic display showing a sector of uncharted space. "We possess partial coordinates for an ancient space station," he explained. "Our legends speak of powerful defensive technology housed within it. This could be our best hope against both the Coalition and the Void Eater threat." Gary's cybernetic eyes narrowed as he studied the display. The Genesis's database contains similar references. If we combine our data, we might be able to triangulate the station's exact location, Lyra finished, her markings pulsing with excitement. As they began the data integration process, long-range sensors detected Coalition scout ships entering the system. The evacuation fleet prepared for emergency departure, but the Genesis's faster-than-light drive was still offline. Gary made a swift decision. "We'll stay behind with a skeleton crew to complete the data integration. We can draw off the Coalition forces, giving the Zephyrian fleet time to escape." Karina stepped forward, her enhanced muscles tensed. "I'm staying with you." Dr. Vex and Lyra also volunteered, recognizing the critical nature of their expertise. As the Zephyrian fleet jumped to safety, Gary piloted the damaged Genesis towards a dense asteroid field within the system. Coalition scout ships appeared on the sensors, closing in fast. "Hold on," Gary warned as he guided the ship into the treacherous terrain. "This is going to get bumpy." The Genesis weaved through the asteroid field, its skeleton crew working frantically to bring key systems back online. Coalition scouts entered the field in pursuit, setting the stage for a deadly game of cat and mouse. As Gary's enhanced reflexes allowed him to navigate the dangerous obstacles, he knew that the fate of their mission, and possibly the entire galaxy, now rested on their ability to complete the data integration and escape with the coordinates of the ancient space station. Station appeared on the main screen. Gary's cybernetic eyes flicked between the new coordinates and the chaotic asteroid field surrounding them. "We've got what we came for," he announced, his voice tight with concentration. "Now we just need to get out of here in one piece." The Genesis weaved through the dense field of space rocks, its hull scraping against smaller debris. Coalition scout ships pursued relentlessly, their larger size hindering their maneuverability. Gary pushed the ship's damaged systems to their limits, using every trick in his enhanced pilot's repertoire to maintain their lead. In the bowels of the ship, Karina and Lyra crawled through narrow maintenance shafts, working in tandem to bypass damaged circuitry. Sweat beaded on Karina's forehead as she manually rerouted power from non-essential systems. "How's it looking?" Lyra called out, her markings pulsing with exertion. Karina grunted as she connected the final wire. "That should do it. Gary, try the weapon systems now." On the bridge, Gary's fingers flew over the controls. The weapons console hummed to life, its displays flickering before stabilizing. "Main cannon online," he confirmed. "Nice work, you two." Meanwhile, Dr. Vex hunched over a workstation in the engine room, surrounded by the buzz of repair drones. Her eyes narrowed as she examined a holographic schematic of the faster-than-light drive. "The primary quantum flux regulator is completely fried," she muttered. "We'll need to fabricate a replacement." As she initiated the fabrication process, the ship lurched violently. Gary's voice crackled over the intercom. "We've cleared the asteroid field, but the Coalition fleet is regrouping. They're trying to box us in." Karina sprinted to the weapons station, her enhanced reflexes allowing her to target incoming missiles with preternatural accuracy. The Genesis shuddered as one missile slipped past their defenses, impacting the hull. Alarms blared throughout the ship as emergency bulkheads slammed shut, sealing off damaged sections. Gary's hands danced across the controls, rerouting power and adjusting shield harmonics to compensate for the breach. "Hull integrity at 62% and falling," Lyra reported, her markings pulsing with urgency. "We can't take much more of this." In the engine room, Dr. Vex made a snap decision. She grabbed the newly fabricated quantum flux regulator, its surface still warm from the manufacturing process. "Gary, I'm installing the new component now. It's untested, but it's our only shot at getting out of here." "Do it," Gary ordered, his voice resolute. As Karina and Lyra provided covering fire, holding off the encroaching Coalition ships, Dr. Vex worked feverishly to install the new component. The engine room filled with the hum of raw energy as the faster-than-light drive powered up. "Now or never, Gary," Dr. Vex shouted. Gary's cybernetic implants interfaced directly with the ship's systems. He could feel the strain on the engines, the precarious balance of energies threatening to tear the Genesis apart. With a final, silent prayer, he activated the drive. The ship lurched violently, the untested component groaning under the surge of power. For a heart-stopping moment, it seemed the jump might fail. Then, with a brilliant flash of light, the Genesis vanished, leaving the stunned Coalition fleet behind. The transit through faster-than-light space was rougher than usual, the ship bucking and shuddering as if caught in a cosmic storm. When they finally dropped back into normal space, alarms were blaring from every console. "Cutting power to the FTL drive," Gary announced, his fingers flying over the controls. "Status report." Lyra's markings pulsed erratically as she scanned the readouts. "Multiple systems in critical condition. Power reserves at 18% and falling. And Gary, we're off course. Way off course." The view screen showed an unfamiliar star field with no sign of the ancient space station they'd been aiming for. The navigation system struggled to pinpoint their location, displaying only question marks where coordinates should be. "We're flying blind here," Gary muttered, his cybernetic eyes scanning for any recognizable stellar formations. Dr. Vex's voice crackled over the intercom, tinged with exhaustion and worry. "The FTL drive is shot. Whatever that jump did, we won't be making another one anytime soon." Gary's enhanced vision caught a flicker of movement on the long-range scanners. He zoomed in, revealing a small, rocky planet orbiting a dim red dwarf star. "It's not much, but it's all we've got," he said, setting a course. "Scanning for a suitable landing zone." As they approached the planet, the scanners picked up an anomaly on the surface. A structure of clearly artificial origin stood out against the barren landscape, its design an incongruous blend of ancient and modern elements. "What do you make of that?" Karina asked, peering at the readout. Lyra's markings pulsed with curiosity. "It could be a long-lost outpost or research station. Either way, it might have the resources we need to repair the Genesis." Gary nodded, his expression grim. "We don't have much choice. Prepare for atmospheric entry." The descent was harrowing, with the Genesis's damaged systems struggling against the planet's gravity and thin atmosphere. Gary's enhanced reflexes were pushed to their limits as he fought to keep the ship stable. With a bone-jarring impact, the Genesis touched down on the planet's surface, kicking up a cloud of reddish dust. As the engines powered down, an eerie silence fell over the ship. "Everyone okay?" Gary called out, running a quick systems check. Affirmative responses came from around the bridge. Karina was already reaching for the environmental suits stored near the airlock. "Atmosphere is thin but breathable," she reported. "Still, we should take precautions." As the team donned their protective gear, Gary couldn't shake a feeling of unease. They had the coordinates for the ancient space station, but they were hopelessly lost in an uncharted sector of space. Their ship was damaged, their resources were dwindling, and now they faced the unknown dangers of an alien world. The airlock hissed open, and Gary stepped out onto the planet's surface, his boots sinking slightly into the loose, reddish soil. The others followed close behind, their helmet lights cutting through the dim twilight cast by the red dwarf star. Before them loomed the mysterious structure, its surfaces a patchwork of weathered stone and gleaming metal. An entrance was visible, sealed by a massive door of unknown design. As they approached, Gary's cybernetic eyes scanned for any signs of life or active systems. The structure remained silent and inscrutable, offering no clues to its purpose or origin. "Well," Gary said, his voice tight with tension, "let's see what secrets this place is hiding." With Karina at his side and Lyra and Dr. Vex close behind, Gary reached out to touch the alien door, ready to face whatever challenges lay beyond. Beyond the alien door. To his surprise, the surface beneath his gloved hand hummed with energy, and a series of intricate patterns illuminated across its face. Gary's cybernetic eyes rapidly processed the changing symbols, his enhanced brain working to decipher their meaning. "It's some kind of security system," he murmured, fingers dancing across the glowing interface. "I think I can bypass it." The others watched tensely as Gary interfaced with the alien technology, his cybernetic implants allowing him to interpret and manipulate the complex systems at an astonishing speed. After several tense moments, there was a deep, resonating click, and the massive door began to slide open. "Nice work," Karina said, her hand resting on her weapon as she peered into the dimly lit corridor beyond. The team entered cautiously, their suit lights cutting through the stale, musty air. As they progressed deeper into the facility, motion-activated lights flickered to life, revealing a vast chamber filled with an array of unfamiliar technology. "Incredible," Dr. Vex breathed, her eyes wide as she took in the sight. "This appears to be some sort of research lab and control center combined." Gary nodded, his cybernetic eyes scanning the room. "The design is eclectic. I'm seeing elements that resemble both ancient artifacts and modern Coalition tech." As they spread out to explore, Dr. Vex's attention was drawn to a circular platform in the center of the room. She approached it carefully, studying the unfamiliar controls. "This looks like it might be a holographic projector," she mused, reaching out to activate it. The air above the platform shimmered, and suddenly a three-dimensional star map of the galaxy materialized before them. Lyra's markings pulsed with excitement as she moved closer to examine it. "Look," she said, pointing to a blinking light. "That must be our current position, and there," she indicated another point on the map. "Those are the coordinates of the ancient space station we're looking for." Gary quickly interfaced with the system, downloading the crucial navigational data. "This is exactly what we needed," he said, a hint of relief in his voice. "Once we get the Genesis repaired, we'll know exactly where to go." Meanwhile, Karina and Lyra had made their way to a sealed door at the far end of the chamber. Karina pressed her enhanced muscles against it, straining to force it open. "A little help here?" she grunted. Lyra joined her, and together they managed to force the door open, revealing a hangar bay beyond. Inside, they found several sleek, small spacecraft, unlike anything they had seen before. "Scout ships," Karina said, running her hand along the smooth hull of the nearest vessel. "And look at this design. They must have some kind of advanced stealth capabilities." As the others explored, Gary found his way to what appeared to be the facility's central computer system. He connected directly, his cybernetic implants allowing him to sift through vast amounts of data at incredible speed. "I'm downloading everything I can," he called out to the others. "Technical schematics, historical data." This place was a joint research station. It was built by a coalition of species thousands of years ago, specifically to combat the Void Eater threat. Dr. Vex, who had been examining another section of the facility, suddenly called out, "I've found a medical bay. The equipment here, it's far beyond anything we currently possess." She began cataloging the advanced medical supplies and devices, her mind already racing with possibilities for treating injuries and enhancing their capabilities. In another section of the facility, Karina and Lyra discovered a weapons testing range. They examined the prototype energy weapons they found there with a mixture of awe and caution. "These operate on similar principles to the ancient superweapon," Lyra observed, her markings pulsing as she analyzed the unfamiliar technology, "but on a much smaller, more controlled scale." Gary's voice came over their comm systems. "I've located the power core. It's a compact fusion reactor that's been running in a low-power state for millennia. I'm initiating the process to bring it back to full power. This should allow us to use the facility's resources to repair the Genesis." As power levels rose throughout the station, dormant systems began to activate. Holographic displays flickered to life, showing real-time data on various experiments and long-term observations. Gary's attention was drawn to one particular display showing the movements of Void Eater entities at the edge of the galaxy. "This confirms it," he said grimly. "The Void Eater threat is real, and it's imminent." With the facility now fully operational, the team began the process of transferring essential data and technology to the Genesis. They used the station's advanced fabrication systems to manufacture replacement parts for their damaged ship, significantly accelerating the repair process. Dr. Vex worked tirelessly to integrate the medical technology from the facility into the Genesis's systems, while also synthesizing a batch of advanced nanites for real-time hull repairs. Karina and Lyra focused on upgrading the ship's weapon systems with the prototype energy weapons they had discovered. As the repairs and upgrades neared completion, Gary made a startling discovery in the facility's historical archives. "Listen to this," he called out to the others. The ancient empire had developed a method to communicate with the Void Eaters. They believed they could negotiate a peaceful resolution. The implications of this revelation hung heavy in the air. Their mission had just become far more complex than simply finding and activating the ancient space station. Before they could fully process this new information, the facility's long-range sensors began to blare a warning. Gary quickly accessed the readout, his expression grim. "Multiple ships entering the system," he announced. "Energy signatures match both coalition vessels and something else, possibly Void Eater scout ships." The team exchanged tense looks. They were out of time. "Finish loading everything you can," Gary ordered, already moving towards the exit. "We need to get the Genesis in the air now." As they raced back to their ship, Gary initiated the launch sequence remotely. The Genesis's systems, now significantly enhanced by the ancient technology, hummed to life. The team boarded quickly, securing their salvage technology and data. As the ship lifted off from the planet's surface, Gary activated their new stealth systems, hoping to slip past the approaching vessels undetected. The Genesis rose through the planet's thin atmosphere, its enhanced systems operating at peak efficiency. As they breached the upper layers of the atmosphere, the vast expanse of space opened up before them, filled with potential threats and the promise of an ancient station that could change the course of the galactic conflict. Gary's hands moved deftly over the controls, plotting a course that would take them through the approaching vessels without detection. The mission to reach the coordinates of the ancient space station had just become far more perilous, but armed with their new technology and crucial information, the crew of the Genesis prepared to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Ahead, the Genesis streaked through the planet's thin atmosphere, its newly upgraded systems humming with power. Gary's fingers danced across the control panel, activating the advanced stealth technology they had salvaged from the ancient facility. "Stealth systems engaged," he announced, his cybernetic eyes tracking multiple readouts simultaneously. "We're practically ghosts now." The ship's exterior shimmered, becoming nearly invisible to both visual and sensor detection. As they ascended higher, the vast expanse of space opened up before them, revealing a scene of potential danger. Multiple contacts, Karina reported, her enhanced vision scanning the area. Coalition vessels and something else. Possibly Void Eater scouts. Gary nodded grimly, his hands steady on the controls. Let's put our new toys to the test. With expert precision, he guided the Genesis through the incoming vessels. The ship glided silently past Coalition cruisers and the unknown entities, their sensors completely blind to the cloaked vessel in their midst. Once clear of the system, Gary's fingers flew over the console once more. Initiating faster-than-light drive. Hang on, everyone. The Genesis leapt forward, stars blurring into streaks of light. The ship's enhanced drive performed flawlessly, carrying them swiftly towards their destination. As they dropped out of FTL, a collective gasp echoed through the bridge. Before them loomed an enormous, ring-shaped structure, dwarfing their ship with its sheer scale. Intricate patterns adorned its surface, pulsing with an otherworldly energy. The ancient space station, Lyra breathed, her markings pulsing with awe and excitement. Gary carefully maneuvered the Genesis towards a docking port, using the data they had acquired to interface with the station systems. With a soft thud and a series of mechanical clicks, the ship secured itself to the massive structure. All right, team, Gary said, rising from his seat. Let's gear up and see what secrets this place holds. They donned their protective suits, now augmented with technology salvaged from the planet-bound facility. As they cycled through the airlock and stepped onto the ancient station, a sense of reverence fell over the group. We'll cover more ground if we split up, Gary decided. Karina, you're with me. We'll head for the control center. Lyra, Dr. Vex, check out that chamber full of tech we spotted on the approach. The teams separated, each moving swiftly through the cavernous corridors of the station. Gary and Karina soon found themselves in a vast control center, holographic displays flickering to life around them as they entered. Gary interfaced directly with the main computer, his cybernetic implants allowing him to process the flood of information. This is incredible, he muttered. The station's primary function, it's a massive communications array. It's designed to reach across vast distances of space. Karina's eyes widened as she understood the implications. You mean it could potentially contact the Void Eaters? Gary nodded, his fingers flying over the controls as he began to power up the station's systems. Meanwhile, Lyra and Dr. Vex explored the research chamber, marveling at the advanced technology surrounding them. Dr. Vex's attention was drawn to a particular device. Fascinating, she murmured, examining it closely. This appears to be some kind of universal translation matrix. It might be capable of deciphering any form of communication, even the signals from the Void Eaters. Lyra joined her markings pulsing as she analyzed the device. With some modifications, we could integrate this into our systems. It could be the key to understanding the Void Eaters. As the team worked, the ancient station hummed to life around them. Holographic displays activated throughout the structure, providing real-time data on cosmic phenomena and the movements of Void Eater entities. Gary's voice crackled over their comm systems. I'm bringing the main systems online now. That includes the defensive array and the communication system. The station's exterior shimmered as energy shields sprang to life, providing a protective barrier against potential threats. The massive communication array began to power up, its components aligning for optimal transmission. Dr. Vex and Lyra worked feverishly to integrate the universal translation matrix into their communication systems, hoping to establish a method of understanding and conversing with the cosmic entities. Suddenly, Karina's voice cut through the comm channel. Multiple contacts detected at the edge of the system. Energy signatures match the Coalition fleet. They're searching for us. Gary's response was immediate. Accelerate the preparations. We need to be ready before they arrive. He quickly composed a coded message, transmitting it through the station's powerful systems to the Zephyrian refugees and Earth's resistance forces. The message contained the station's coordinates and an urgent request for reinforcements. As the Coalition fleet drew nearer, the team raced against time. Gary and Karina focused on bringing the defensive systems to full power, while Lyra and Dr. Vex made final adjustments to the communication array. Just as the first coalition ships entered the system, Gary initiated the transmission sequence. A complex signal, encoded with the universal translation matrix, burst forth from the ancient station, aimed at the nearest cluster of Void Eater entities. The team held their breath, watching as the signal propagated through space. It represented humanity's first attempt at peaceful communication with the cosmic threat that had haunted them for so long. The Coalition fleet approached rapidly, their weapons charged and ready to attack. The Genesis crew took up defensive positions, prepared to fight if necessary. The fate of their mission, and possibly the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. As they waited for a response from either their allies or the enigmatic Void Eaters, the ancient space station thrummed with power, its systems fully operational for the first time in millennia. The Genesis crew stood ready, acutely aware that their actions in the next few moments could change the course of galactic history. The Coalition fleet loomed ever closer, their intentions clear. Gary's hands hovered over the station's weapon controls, ready to activate them at a moment's notice. The tension on the bridge was palpable as they monitored both the approaching threat and their communications array, desperate for any sign of a response from the Void Eaters. Eaters! The air crackled with tension as they awaited a response from either side. Suddenly, the communication array pulsed with energy. A cascade of data flooded the holographic displays, causing Gary's cybernetic eyes to widen. "We're receiving a signal," he announced, his fingers flying over the controls. It's from the Void Eaters." The universal translation matrix hummed to life, processing the incoming message. As the decoded text appeared on the screen, the team leaned in, their breath held in anticipation. Dr. Vex read aloud, her voice trembling with excitement. "We acknowledge your communication. Our actions are not born of malice, but necessity. We seek preservation in an expanding universe." The implications of this message sent shockwaves through the team. Lyra's markings pulsed rapidly as she processed the information. "They're not inherently hostile," she breathed. "This changes everything." Before they could fully digest this revelation, the station's sensors blared a warning. Karina's enhanced vision locked onto the tactical display. "Coalition attack ships incoming." The ancient station's defensive systems activated automatically, enveloping the structure in a shimmering energy barrier. The first salvo from the Coalition fleet impacted harmlessly against the shield, dissipating in a brilliant display of light. Gary's hands moved with lightning speed across the weapons array controls. "Let's see what this old girl can do," he muttered, targeting the lead Coalition ships. Precision energy beams lanced out from the station, striking the Coalition vessels with pinpoint accuracy. Several ships listed, their systems disabled by the powerful weaponry. Karina interfaced with the station's AI, her cybernetic implants allowing her to process vast amounts of data. "Optimizing shield distribution," she reported. "Critical areas protected." As she worked, she established a secure channel to the approaching Zephyrian and Earth resistance forces. "Transmitting tactical data on Coalition fleet formation," she announced. In the research chamber, Dr. Vex and Lyra worked feverishly to refine the translation matrix. "We need to understand them better," Dr. Vex insisted, her fingers flying over the holographic interface. Their efforts yielded results as another message from the Void Eaters appeared. Lyra's eyes widened as she read, "They consume energy from stars and planets for sustenance. It's not destruction for destruction's sake." The battle outside intensified. Coalition ships swarmed around the station, their weapons fire splashing against the energy barrier. Gary's counterattacks were precise and devastating, disabling key vessels and creating chaos in the enemy formation. Suddenly, a new group of ships dropped out of FTL at the edge of the system. "Zephyrian reinforcements," Karina called out, her voice filled with relief. The Zephyrian fleet engaged the Coalition from behind, catching them in a deadly crossfire. Gary seized the opportunity, launching a full-scale counteroffensive with the station's advanced weaponry. As Coalition ships began to fall back, the communication array lit up once more. Another message from the Void Eaters appeared on the screen. "We propose a meeting to discuss coexistence, a symbiotic relationship. Neutral location coordinates follow." The team exchanged looks of amazement. The possibility of peaceful resolution seemed within reach. Their elation was short-lived. Karina's voice cut through the moment. Massive energy surge detected. Coalition launching some kind of superweapon. Gary's eyes locked onto the tactical display, tracking the incoming threat. It's aimed at the power core, he growled, redirecting all power to that sector's shields. The energy projectile struck with earth-shattering force. The entire station shuddered, systems flickering as power surged through its ancient circuitry. For a heart-stopping moment, everything went dark. Then slowly, systems began to come back online. The team worked frantically to restore full functionality, acutely aware of the battle still raging outside. A new wave of ships arrived in the system. Earth's resistance fleet. They joined the Zephyrian forces, their combined firepower overwhelming the remaining coalition vessels. Unable to stand against this united front, the coalition fleet began a full retreat. As the last enemy ships fled the system, a sense of victory filled the station. But there was no time to celebrate. The team knew that the real challenge lay ahead. Gary accessed the station's fabrication systems, initiating the creation of a specialized vessel. We need something that can withstand the conditions for meeting the Void Eaters, he explained. As the ship took form, Karina stepped forward. I'm coming with you, she stated, her tone brooking no argument. Gary nodded, a small smile playing on his lips. Wouldn't have it any other way. As the specialized vessel neared completion, Dr. Vex and Lyra prepared to coordinate from the station. They would manage communications and provide support for this unprecedented diplomatic mission. Gary and Karina boarded the newly fabricated ship, their hearts racing with a mixture of anticipation and trepidation. As the airlock sealed behind them, Gary took his place at the controls. Ready? He asked, his hand hovering over the launch sequence. Karina nodded, her enhanced eyes fixed on the vast expanse of space before them. Let's make history. With a deep breath, Gary initiated the launch. The specialized vessel detached from the ancient station, its engines flaring to life. As they set course for the designated meeting point, the future of the stars hung in the balance. Behind them, the combined Zephyrian and Earth resistance fleets took up defensive positions around the station, prepared to protect this newfound asset. The ancient structure hummed with power, its systems fully operational for the first time in millennia, ready to play its part in this pivotal moment of galactic history. The specialized vessel glided through the vast expanse of space, its sleek form a testament to the ancient station's advanced fabrication capabilities. Gary's hands danced across the control panel, making minute adjustments to their course as they approached the coordinates provided by the Void Eaters. Karina's enhanced eyes scanned the void before them, searching for any sign of their enigmatic counterparts. Anything on sensors? She asked, her voice taut with anticipation. Gary shook his head, his cybernetic implants processing the incoming data at lightning speed. Nothing yet, but we're almost... His words were cut short as a brilliant flash of light erupted around their ship. Swirling iridescent particles engulfed the vessel, forming a cocoon of pulsating energy. What's happening? Karina exclaimed, her hands clutching the chairs of her seat. Gary's fingers flew over the controls, his eyes wide as he interpreted the readings. Some kind of spatial distortion. Our sensors can't make sense of it. Hold on. The ship lurched, and for a moment it felt as if reality itself had bent around them. When the disorientation passed, they found themselves in an entirely new environment. Before them loomed an enormous structure, its architecture defying conventional understanding. The vessel's sensors indicated Earth-like conditions in their immediate vicinity, despite the alien nature of their surroundings. It appears we've been transported, Gary said, his voice filled with awe. This must be their meeting place. As they exited their ship, Gary and Karina were met with a sight beyond their wildest imagination. Towering, luminescent entities stood before them, their forms fluid and ever-changing. The beings pulsed with light and energy, communicating in a language of illumination and vibration. The universal translation matrix hummed to life, interpreting the complex signals. Welcome, it translated, the mechanical voice a stark contrast to the ethereal beings before them. We are pleased you have come to discuss coexistence. Gary stepped forward, his heart racing but his voice steady. We come seeking understanding and a peaceful resolution to our conflict. As the diplomatic talks began, Gary and Karina presented the concerns of the galaxy's inhabitants. They spoke of the devastation caused by the consumption of stars and planets, the fear that gripped countless civilizations. The Void Eaters listened, their forms shifting in patterns that the translation matrix interpreted as thoughtful consideration. When they responded, their explanation sent shockwaves through the human representatives. Our actions maintain cosmic balance, the translation came. Without our intervention, the universe faces catastrophic collapse. As the negotiations progressed, Gary's mind raced with possibilities. He proposed a compromise, his voice filled with hope. What if we established designated feeding zones in uninhabited regions? We could implement an early warning system for populated areas, allowing for evacuation and preservation of life. The Void Eaters' forms pulsed with rapid patterns of light as they considered the proposal. After what seemed like an eternity, they agreed to a trial period. While Gary continued the discussions, Karina's attention was drawn to unusual energy readings nearby. She excused herself and investigated, discovering a chamber filled with advanced technology left by ancient civilizations. As she examined the artifacts, her enhanced vision processing the wealth of information before her, a transmission from Dr. Vex cut through her focus. Coalition forces regrouping. Dr. Vex's voice crackled with urgency. Preparing for counterattack. We need you back here immediately. Gary joined Karina, his face grim as he received the same message. He turned to the Void Eaters, explanation rapid and impassioned. The stability we seek is threatened. Will you help us? The Void Eaters' response was beyond anything they could have imagined. As Gary and Karina boarded their ship, now enhanced with Void Eater technology, they witnessed a small group of the cosmic entities preparing to follow. The journey back to the station was a blur of impossible speed. As they approached, the scene that greeted them was one of chaos and destruction. Coalition ships swarmed the station, their weapons fire testing the limits of its ancient defenses. Gary's voice rang out over the comms. All Allied ships, prepare for Void Eater intervention. Do not engage the new entities entering the field. The arrival of the Void Eaters changed the course of the battle in an instant. Their massive forms rippled through space, distorting reality around them. Without direct attacks, they created energy fields that rendered coalition weapons useless and ships immobile. In the ensuing confusion, Gary coordinated with the Zephyrian and Earth resistance fleets. Target the lead ships, he commanded. Disable their command and control systems. The battle concluded swiftly, the coalition forces retreating in disarray. As the dust settled, Gary and Karina found themselves back aboard the ancient station, surrounded by allies old and new. Dr. Vex and Lyra approached, their faces a mix of relief and bewilderment. You have quite a story to tell, Dr. Vex said, her eyes darting to the Void Eater manifestations visible through the station's viewports. Gary nodded, the weight of recent events settling on his shoulders. We stand at the beginning of a new era, he said, his gaze meeting Karina's, one that will require all of our wisdom and courage to navigate. As representatives from various species began to arrive at the station, eager for explanations and wary of the Void Eater's presence, Gary and Karina shared a quiet moment amidst the bustle. We've opened a door, Karina said, her enhanced eyes taking in the activity around them. But what lies beyond it? Gary's response was interrupted by a sudden surge of energy from the station's core. Alarms blared as ancient systems, pushed beyond their limits by the recent battle, began to overload. Fail. The ancient structure groaned, its systems overloading from the strain of recent events. Gary's eyes widened as he processed the incoming data through his cybernetic implants. We need to stabilize the core, he shouted over the blaring alarms. Karina, with me! They sprinted toward the heart of the station, weaving through panicked crowds of newly arrived representatives. As they reached the central chamber, Gary's hands flew over the control panels, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to input commands at lightning speed. Karina's enhanced vision scanned the pulsing core, identifying critical weak points. Rerouting power from sectors 3 and 5, she called out, her fingers dancing across a holographic interface. As they worked frantically to prevent a catastrophic meltdown, Lyra's voice crackled over the comms. Gary, Karina, I found something in the archives. It's urgent. We're a little busy right now, Lyra, Gary grunted, sweat beading on his forehead as he manually adjusted power flow regulators. It's about a hidden Zephyrian colony, Lyra pressed on, her voice tinged with excitement, established long ago as a safeguard against extinction. We need to go there. Karina glanced at Gary, her eyes widening with realization. If it's true, it could change everything. With a final push, they managed to stabilize the station's core. The alarms fell silent, replaced by the hum of normalizing systems. Gary straightened up, his muscles aching from the intense effort. All right, Lyra, he said, catching his breath. Meet us in the command center. We need to see this information. Minutes later, the team gathered around a holographic display as Lyra presented her findings. Ancient star charts and cryptic messages scrolled by, pointing to a distant, uncharted sector of space. It's real, Karina breathed, her enhanced eyes processing the data at inhuman speed. A thriving Zephyrian civilization, hidden from the galaxy. Gary nodded, his mind already formulating a plan. We need to go there. Now. He turned to Dr. Vex, who had joined them in the command center. Can you handle things here? The scientist nodded, her eyes gleaming with dedication. Go! This could be the key to rebuilding our fractured galaxy. As they prepared to depart, Gary accessed the station's fabrication systems one last time, upgrading their ship with the latest technology gleaned from their recent encounters. The vessel that emerged was a marvel of engineering, a fusion of ancient wisdom and cutting-edge innovation. With a final nod to Dr. Vex and the assembled representatives, Gary, Karina, and Lyra boarded their ship. The station's massive hangar doors parted, revealing the star-studded expanse of space. Plot a course for the coordinates, Gary instructed as he took his place at the helm. Lyra's fingers flew over the navigation console, inputting the cryptic directions from the ancient archives. The ship's engines flared to life, propelling them into the unknown. As they accelerated to faster-than-light speeds, the familiar stars gave way to uncharted territories. Days passed in a blur of swirling cosmic energies. Lyra spent hours poring over the archival data, piecing together fragments of her people's forgotten history. Karina fine-tuned their sensors, pushing the limits of their new technology to scan for any signs of the hidden world. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity of empty space, their sensors pinged. A solar system appeared on their screens, hidden behind a dense nebula that had shielded it from detection for millennia. As they approached, a lush, green world came into view. Cities gleaming with advanced technology dotted its surface, seamlessly integrated with the planet's natural beauty. It's real, Lyra whispered, her voice choked with emotion. My people, they're alive. Their ship entered the planet's atmosphere, guided by a welcoming beacon. As they descended, they saw crowds gathering below, faces turned skyward in a mixture of awe and anticipation. The moment their ship touched down, they were surrounded by a sea of Zephyrians. Lyra stepped out first, her legs shaking as she set foot on the soil of her ancestors. A hush fell over the crowd as they recognized one of their own. An elderly Zephyrian stepped forward, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. Welcome home, child, he said, his voice carrying the weight of centuries. We have been waiting for you. Gary and Karina watched as Lyra was embraced by her people, feeling the weight of the moment. They had not just discovered a hidden world, they had reunited a lost daughter with her heritage. As the initial excitement settled, the colony's leaders ushered them into a grand hall filled with technology beyond their wildest dreams. Holographic displays showcased advancements in energy production, terraforming, and healing that could revolutionize life across the galaxy. We have preserved our knowledge and continued to advance, the elder explained, always with the hope that one day we could share it with our scattered brethren and help rebuild our civilization. Gary's mind raced with the possibilities. This could be the key to healing worlds ravaged by war, to bringing life back to dead planets. As they discussed the implications of this discovery, a young Zephyrian burst into the hall, his face pale with fear. Coalition ships, he cried. They've found us. The peaceful atmosphere shattered in an instant. Gary, Karina, and Lyra exchanged determined looks. They had come too far, discovered too much to let it all be destroyed now. "We'll defend your world," Gary declared, his cybernetic implants already interfacing with the colony's defense systems. "Show us what you've got." As they rushed to prepare for battle, the skies above the hidden Zephyrian world darkened with the approach of coalition warships. The peace of millennia was about to be broken, and the fate of not just this world, but perhaps the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. Gary, Karina, and Lyra took their positions, ready to fight for this newfound hope. The coming battle would test not only their enhanced abilities, but also the strength of their bond forged through countless trials. As the first shots lit up the sky, they steeled themselves for the challenge ahead, knowing that the future of countless worlds now depended on their success.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.